At 7:18 on the night of my son's anniversary dinner, I heard my daughter-in-law tell the caterer, "Her meal can go with the staff trays." She said it in my dining room, 6 feet from the chair where my husband used to sit. The caterer, a compact woman named Lena, had been holding 2 place cards and looking between them as if one might confess something. Her eyes came to me. Then Paige's did. Finally, Daniel turned around with a champagne bottle in his hand. That was the moment. I know because I've replayed it enough times to measure every second. Daniel saw my blue dress. He saw the pearl earrings he'd given me for my 65th birthday. He saw the caterer waiting for somebody to explain why the owner of the house had nowhere to sit. He could have said any number of things. Instead, my son glanced toward the front hall where the first guests were arriving and said, "It's fine. Mom won't make a thing of it." He was right, which was the worst part. I didn't make a thing of it. Not then. 3 weeks earlier, Daniel had called while I was standing on a kitchen chair with half my body inside the cabinet over the refrigerator. That cabinet held objects I distrusted but couldn't throw away: an electric carving knife, a fondue pot from 1987, and a ceramic turkey with a removable head. I had decided to clean it because the weather was too wet for the garden, and because retirement will convince a sane woman that reorganizing cocktail napkins is an accomplishment. "Mom," Daniel said, "are you busy?" There are questions adult sons ask because they want the truth, and there are questions they ask because they need you to say no. "I'm performing surgery on a turkey." There was a pause. "Is that a euphemism?" "It's ceramic." Okay. Somehow worse. Daniel had always been able to make me laugh at exactly the moment I should have been suspicious. At 46, he still had the warm, slightly rough voice he'd had after college, when he used to call on Sunday mornings and pretend he needed my biscuit recipe. He never needed the recipe. He wanted to hear his father yelling corrections from across the room. "What do you need?" I asked. "Our anniversary dinner may have outgrown the house." "Your house or the White House?" "Our house." Paige invited the Wexlers. I climbed down from the chair. I don't know who those people are, neither do I, really. Greg's on the regional board. That explained nothing to me, and apparently everything to Daniel. He worked in medical supply distribution, a phrase I had heard for 12 years without forming a clear picture of what he did between 8 and 5. I knew there were conferences, forecasts, and a man named Greg whose opinion affected the weather inside my son's head. Daniel explained that Paige's original dinner for 16 had become 24, then 28. Their dining room could seat 10 if nobody wanted elbows. Paige had looked at private rooms, but the one she liked was booked, and the one available had carpet she described as aggressively burgundy. "So," he said carefully, "we wondered if we could have it at your place." My place was a 100-year-old house with floors that announced every footstep and windows that had to be threatened before they opened. It was also very good at parties. The dining room connected to the living room through wide pocket doors, and my late husband, Tom, had built a back porch large enough for 3 tables and a swing nobody used because it leaned. "When?" I asked. 3 weeks from Saturday." "Of course." "You don't have to answer immediately. You've already told Paige yes, haven't you?" He made a small sound. "Daniel." "I told her you'd probably love the idea. That should have bothered me more than it did." Instead, I looked through the kitchen doorway at the long dining table. I pictured candlelight against the windows, Daniel laughing with one hand on Paige's shoulder, people carrying plates onto Tom's porch. "Well," I said, "I probably do." Daniel exhaled so hard I could hear his smile. "You're saving us." It was one of his favorite things to tell me. Paige arrived the next morning with coffee, a tape measure, and a 3-ring binder. The coffee was exactly how I liked it, which made the binder seem less threatening. "I want you to know how grateful I am," she said as she kissed my cheek. Truly. Paige was 44 and always looked prepared for a photograph she had not been warned about. That morning she wore jeans, a cream sweater, and tiny gold earrings. Her blonde hair was twisted at the back of her head with a clip that probably cost more than my first sofa. She was not a frivolous woman, though people often mistook polish for shallowness. Paige could change a tire, remember the name of every person at Daniel's company, and sit beside you in a hospital waiting room without filling the silence. After Tom died, she had stayed with me through the first night. She washed the water glasses everyone abandoned and slept sitting up on my living room couch because I said I didn't want anybody in the guest room. That was the Paige I kept reaching for whenever the other Paige appeared. The other Paige stood in my dining room, studied the framed photographs on the piano, and said, "We might simplify this area." Simplify it how? Just visually. They're photographs. I know. Very quiet photographs. She smiled, but only with her mouth. The caterer will set the dessert station here. All the frames make it feel a little busy. There were 7 photographs. Tom and me at Yellowstone. Daniel at his college graduation. Daniel and Paige on their wedding day. One of my sister and me laughing so hard the picture was blurred. I picked up the Yellowstone photograph. Should I tell these people they're being evicted, or will you? Ellen, please don't make me sound awful. I didn't know I had that kind of power. For a second, she looked tired rather than annoyed. I just want one night where everything feels right. That softened me. Paige had grown up moving from apartment to apartment with a mother who liked new beginnings more than rent payments. She never mentioned that childhood unless she was explaining why she kept extra light bulbs, batteries, and canned soup. Order was not decoration to Paige. It was a locked door. I touched her arm. It will be lovely. She covered my hand with hers and squeezed. Then she opened the binder. By noon, my house had been divided into zones. The living room would be cocktails and flow. The dining room would be the main experience. My downstairs bedroom would be for coats, although I pointed out that people generally manage coats in the front hall. The bed gives us space, Paige said. The bed gives me sleep, just for one night. That phrase followed us through the next 3 weeks. Just for one night. The brass lamp Tom loved went into the upstairs closet because its shade was too yellow. Just for one night, the rug in the hall was rolled and tied because someone might trip. Just for one night, I moved my reading chair out of the living room, surrendered 2 shelves of my refrigerator, and let a florist tell me my garden roses were the wrong shade of white. Daniel floated in and out of the preparations with boxes, jokes, and selective deftness. Whenever Paige and I disagreed, he found an urgent task in another room. Once, while we were discussing whether my dining chairs needed covers, I watched him carry the same empty carton through the hallway twice. "Is that box getting heavier?" I asked. He looked down at it. "You can't rush quality work." Paige did not laugh. I did, which let him escape. A week before the dinner, I offered to make the lemon cake. It had been Daniel's favorite since he was 11, and it was the first dessert I served Paige when he brought her home to meet us. She had eaten 2 slices, then asked if I would mind writing down the recipe. I still had the card in her handwriting. She'd spelled meringue 3 different ways. "Oh," she said when I offered, "that's sweet. Sweet is not always a compliment. You don't want it?" "No, Daniel will love it. It's just that Camille has a plated dessert planned." "Who's Camille?" "The caterer." I thought the caterer was Lena. Lena is the event captain. Camille owns the company. I nodded as though this distinction had been keeping me awake. Paige flipped through her binder and showed me a photograph of a chocolate dome with a gold streak across it. It looked like something found at an archaeological dig. "We could put your cake on the dessert table," she said, "as an additional option, in case anyone has a medical objection to chocolate domes." She gave me the tired look again. "I'm trying to include it." So I made the cake. The afternoon of the party, my kitchen filled with people who knew where nothing belonged. Sheet pans covered the counters. Bundles of herbs occupied the sink. A young man in a black apron opened 6 drawers searching for a vegetable peeler while standing directly in front of the correct one. I found it for him. "Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome. If you locate my kitchen, let me know." Lena heard me and laughed. She had short dark hair, red-framed glasses, and the calmest hands I had ever seen. While everyone else moved like the house was on fire, she adjusted plates by fractions of an inch. "You must be Mrs. Mercer," she said. "Ellen." Paige said you'd know where everything is. I've been studying for 32 years. Paige appeared behind her carrying a box of place cards. Ellen, would you mind putting on the black slacks for a little while? Just during setup. I looked down at my khaki pants and green blouse. What's wrong with these? Nothing. The staff is in black and it will feel more cohesive while people are moving around. Lena became very interested in a stack of napkins. I'm not staff, I said. Paige blinked, as if I had misunderstood a simple direction. I know that. Of course I know that. I only meant while you're helping. Daniel came through the back door with 2 cases of wine. Tell your mother she doesn't have to change, Paige said. He stopped. I waited. He looked at her, then at me, then at the wine in his hands as if hoping one of the bottles might speak. Wear whatever you want, Mom, he said finally. Paige is just trying to make everything look pulled together. There it was, a sentence shaped like support with nothing inside it. I went upstairs anyway. I wore the black slacks while the tables were set and the candles were arranged. I carried Tom's crystal down one careful piece at a time. At 6:30, I changed into my blue dress, fastened my pearls, and stood for a moment in front of the mirror. Downstairs, 32 place settings shone beneath the chandelier. I counted them twice. Then I walked around the table reading every card. Daniel Mercer, Paige Mercer, Greg and Allison Wexler, friends, colleagues, neighbors, a cousin who had once tried to sell me vitamin powder. My name wasn't there. I checked the sideboard in case Paige had planned a smaller table there. I checked the kitchen, although the only table in it was covered with stainless steel trays. Then I checked the cards again, moving more slowly this time, as if my name might appear if I gave it a fair chance. Lena came in carrying 2 additional cards. Sorry, she said. We had a late edition. Do you know where Paige wants these? I'm not sure. She noticed the card in my hand. It belonged to Greg Wexler, a man I had never met but was already beginning to dislike on principle. Is something wrong? I seem to have misplaced myself. Lena glanced down the table. She was too professional to react, but not professional enough to hide the small line that appeared between her eyebrows. Paige hurried in from the front hall. The Wexlers are here already. Daniel said they're always early, but I thought he meant 5 minutes, not half an hour. Where am I sitting? I asked. She stopped. That was answer enough, but I made her give me the other one. Ellen, can we not do this right now? I'm not doing anything. I'm asking which chair is mine. I had to adjust the seating. You removed 1 chair. I added 2 people. That's interesting math. She drew a breath through her nose. There isn't room at the main table without squeezing everyone. This is my dining table. It has survived squeezing. Lena held the 2 cards against her apron. I can reset one end. It'll only take a minute. No, Paige said quickly. The spacing is already tight, and the rentals were counted exactly. I looked at the table. There were flowers where a 33rd place could have gone. 3 low arrangements of white roses the wrong shade of white. A narrow chair could have fit near the end. We had narrow chairs in the attic. I had carried 2 of them down that morning before Paige decided the rented chairs looked more consistent. Where did you expect me to eat? I asked. The doorbell rang, followed by Daniel's laugh in the front hall. Paige turned her head toward the sound, as if it were a rope being thrown to her. Lena tried once more. I just need to know where to send Mrs. Mercer's plate. Paige looked at her, not at me. Her meal can go with the staff trays. She's been helping them all day anyway. The kitchen went quiet in the odd, incomplete way a working kitchen does. Nobody stopped moving exactly. A spoon still struck the edge of a bowl. Water kept running in the sink, but every person in that room found a reason not to speak. Daniel walked in holding a champagne bottle. His smile was still arranged for company. He saw me, saw Paige, and then looked at Lena. What happened? Nothing, Paige said. I don't have a seat, I told him. He looked toward the dining room. Because the Wexlers came, Paige said. And Martin brought his partner even though he never responded. I told you this could happen. Daniel rubbed his thumb over the foil on the champagne bottle. Can we pull up another chair? It will ruin the spacing. Then maybe put someone at the end? Daniel, people are walking in. Lena's eyes moved to him. Mine did too. He lowered his voice. It's fine. Mom won't make a thing of it. The sentence landed gently. That was what made it so precise. Paige's shoulders dropped. Daniel gave me a small, pleading look, the one he used when he wanted credit for knowing I was reasonable. In the front hall, a man called his name. I need to greet Greg, Daniel said. We'll figure something out. He left with the champagne. Paige touched 2 fingers to her temple. I'm sorry. I am. This night has gotten away from me. I wanted to ask when it had gotten so far away that I no longer belonged inside it. Instead, I picked up the matchbox from the sideboard. The candles aren't lit, I said. She watched me strike the first match. Ellen, you have guests. She stood there another second, then went after Daniel. I lit 12 candles. The first match burned close enough to my fingers to sting. I used it anyway. The Wexlers entered the dining room while I was lighting the last 2. Greg was a broad man with a pink face and a voice that made every room seem smaller. Allison wore a silver dress and looked around with open pleasure. This house, she said. Oh my goodness. Paige told me it was beautiful. Daniel grew up here, Paige said. It was the sort of sentence that included me grammatically. Allison smiled at me. You must be Daniel's mother. I must. She laughed because she thought I was being charming. For the next 40 minutes, I behaved so well I frightened myself. I took coats upstairs and laid them across my bed. I showed a guest the bathroom. I found the corkscrew Daniel had misplaced beside the champagne bucket. When Paige's cousin arrived wearing the same color as Paige, I said they both looked lovely before either could become injured by it. Daniel caught me alone near the stairs. We'll put a plate for you in the kitchen, he said. That's been arranged. Mom. What? He looked toward the living room. Please don't say it like that. Like what? Like I've done something terrible. I studied his face. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, which seemed to him like evidence of innocence. Your guests are waiting, I said. He reached for my arm, but a man called, Dan, you've got to settle an argument. And my son's hand dropped. That was how the evening worked. Every time reality approached him, somebody needed another drink. At dinner, I stood in the doorway as everyone found a place. The room glowed. Tom's crystal caught the candlelight and threw it across the ceiling in small, unsteady shapes. For one foolish second, I imagined him coming down the stairs, taking in the table, and asking loudly why his wife was standing up. Paige sat at one end. Daniel sat at the other. Lena approached me quietly. I can set you up in the breakfast room. The breakfast room was what Paige called the closed porch during winter. It contained a card table and 3 covered garden chairs. No, thank you. I'm sorry. It's not your apology to make. She hesitated. I saved you a plate. It's in the warmer. That was kind. It was. I wanted her to know I understood the difference. I went into the kitchen and found 6 staff meals lined up in black plastic containers. They were not scraps. The containers held chicken, roasted potatoes, and green beans, the same food the guests were eating from China. My meal was in a 7th container with Ellen written across the lid in silver marker. Someone had set a fork on top. I stood there looking at my own name. I had searched the dining room for it, and here it was. One of the servers, a thin man named Omar, came in and stopped when he saw me. We can make room, he said, gesturing toward the back steps where 2 staff members were eating between courses. That's all right. We really can. His kindness almost undid me. Not because sitting with the staff was shameful. They had treated me with more consideration in one afternoon than my family had managed all evening. But if I sat down, I knew what I would do. I would ask their names, find out who needed coffee, locate napkins, and turn my humiliation into another shift of taking care of everyone. I'm not hungry yet, I said. I went upstairs to my bedroom. Coats covered the bed, the chair, and half the floor. A fur stole had been laid across Tom's side of the mattress. I nearly laughed. There was something so perfectly rude about it that laughing seemed safer. I took my own coat from the closet. As I reached the stairs, someone tapped a glass below. Daniel stood in the dining room holding champagne. From the landing, I could see him through the open doors. 20 years, he began, and everyone made the proper appreciative noises. That sounds impossible, mostly because Paige hasn't aged. Paige rolled her eyes. Greg Wexler laughed too loudly. Daniel talked about their first apartment, the road trips they used to take, and the years when they had built a life one practical decision at a time. He was good at speeches. He could make sincerity sound spontaneous even when he had rehearsed it in my kitchen that morning. Then he lifted his glass. "To the woman who makes everything happen," he said, "none of this exists without you." Everyone turned toward Paige. I looked down at the pearl bracelet on my wrist. It had belonged to Tom's mother, and I had spent an hour that afternoon searching for it because Paige said the blue dress needed something brighter. I walked down the stairs during the applause. No one noticed me leave. That is not bitterness. It is simply what happened. The rain had stopped, but the pavement shone under the streetlights. I drove without deciding where I was going until I saw the green and red sign of the Harrison Diner, a place Tom and I used to visit after late movies. The parking lot was nearly empty. A waitress with gray braids seated me in a booth by the window. "Special occasion?" she asked, looking at my dress. "Apparently." She handed me a menu. "That kind of night? Is it showing?" "Honey, you're wearing pearls in a diner and looking at the soup section like it insulted your mother." I laughed before I could stop myself. Her name tag said June. She brought me tomato soup, grilled cheese, and coffee, without making me explain why a woman dressed for a formal dinner was eating alone at 8:30. My phone buzzed beside the sugar container. "Daniel, where are the extra cocktail napkins?" A minute later, "Mom?" Then Paige, "Do you remember where the cake server is?" I turned the phone face down. June refilled my coffee. "You want pie?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to reconsider a poor decision." The soup was hot and tasted mostly of salt. I ate 4 spoonfuls. The grilled cheese cooled untouched on the plate. My phone buzzed again. "Daniel, where did you go?" I read the message twice. Not, "Are you all right?" Not, "I'm sorry." He wanted my location as if I were another missing object in the kitchen. I turned the phone off. June returned carrying a slice of apple pie anyway. "This one cracked when we cut it," she said. "Can't charge people for ugly pie. It looks fine. Don't ruin this for me." I ate 3 bites. It was better than the gold-striped chocolate dome. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the rental truck was gone, and the last guest was backing into the street. I waited with my headlights off until the car passed. Inside, the house smelled of extinguished candles, wine, and roasted garlic. Glasses covered every flat surface. One white rose arrangement had tipped sideways, dripping water onto the table. Tom's crystal sat among coffee cups stained with lipstick. Paige and Daniel were in the kitchen. She had taken off her shoes. He had loosened his tie. Between them sat my lemon cake. One narrow slice was missing. Daniel looked up. "There you are." Paige stared at my coat. "You left?" I set my purse on the counter. "Yes." "We didn't know where you were," Daniel said. "You noticed eventually." His face changed. "Mom, come on." Paige folded her arms. "We saved you dinner." I looked toward the warmer. The black container with my name on it was still there. How thoughtful. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "Can we not do this tonight?" "Certainly." I picked up the cake plate. Paige frowned. "What are you doing?" "Putting my cake away. People may still want some. There are no people left. Martin and Lee are staying to help. They can have the chocolate dome." I carried the cake into the pantry and closed the door. When I came back, neither of them had moved. Daniel gestured toward the dining room. "This place is a wreck. We'll come early tomorrow and handle it." "You should." Paige's voice sharpened. "We said we would." "No," I said. "You said we." Daniel stared at me. I took the first stole off Tom's side of the bed, placed it over Paige's arm, and wished them good night. At 9 the next morning, they returned wearing old clothes and carrying coffee for 3. I opened the door but did not take mine. Behind me, every dirty glass stood exactly where they had left it. Daniel lifted the cardboard carrier slightly. "We brought your usual, I can see that. 2 creams. I still recognize coffee, Daniel." His mouth tightened. Paige stepped around him carrying a roll of trash bags and a plastic tub. She had tied her hair back and put on one of Daniel's old college sweatshirts. Without makeup, she looked younger and much more tired. "Can we come in?" she asked. I moved aside. They entered with the cautious posture of people visiting someone after surgery. Daniel set the coffee on the kitchen counter. Paige opened a trash bag with a sharp snap and went straight to the dining room. "Where do you want the linens?" she called. "Wherever the rental company told you to put them. The bags have to be separated." "Then I suppose they should be separated." Daniel turned to me. "Are you going to do this all morning? I haven't done anything yet?" "That's not true." He said it quietly, which was his preferred way of being angry. Tom had raised his voice when he was upset, filled the house with it, then apologized before the walls stopped ringing. Daniel became softer. He could make an accusation sound like concern and leave you wondering why you felt slapped. I leaned against the counter. "Tell me what I've done." "You left without saying anything. You turned your phone off. Now you're acting like we committed some unforgivable crime because of a seating problem." From the dining room came the clatter of plates being stacked harder than necessary. It wasn't a seating problem. I know Paige's wording was bad. Her wording was accurate. He looked toward the doorway. "Can we not make this about her? Who should I make it about?" He looked back at me, and there it was again. The plea. Not for forgiveness, for cooperation. Paige came in holding an armful of napkins. "You can make it about me. Apparently everything already is." "Paige," Daniel warned. "No, I'd like to hear it." She dropped the napkins into the plastic tub. "I apologized last night. You told me you saved me dinner. I said I was sorry before the party. You said the night had gotten away from you, which meant I was sorry. It meant the night was responsible." Paige stared at me. Daniel removed the lid from one of the coffees, then put it back on without drinking. I had spent years stepping into moments like that with a joke, a plate of something, a practical question. Anything to keep 2 people from standing in the full discomfort of what they had said. My body still wanted to do it. I could feel the reflex in my hands. Instead, I let the silence remain. Paige broke first. "Fine. I should not have said your meal could go with the staff trays. No, you shouldn't have. I was under pressure. There it is. What do you want from me, Ellen? I had 34 people arriving. The catering company was short a server. Martin brought someone without telling us, and you were asking me about a chair while I was trying to keep the whole evening from falling apart. I asked where I was supposed to eat in my own house. I know whose house it is. Do you?" Her face went still. Daniel stepped between us without literally moving. He was good at that, too. "Mom, Paige knows this is your house. That's why we're here cleaning." "No, you're here cleaning because you made the mess." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not helping. I didn't ask you to. You brought me coffee." His expression became almost comic with frustration. "Coffee is not an attempt to manipulate you, maybe not consciously." Paige gave a single laugh with no humor in it. Unbelievable. She returned to the dining room. Daniel lowered his voice. "You're making every small thing ugly." "No, I'm looking at it before I make it pretty for you." He stared at me long enough that I could see him decide not to understand. "All right," he said. "We'll clean up." They did. I sat in my kitchen with the newspaper while my son and his wife washed glasses, scraped plates, bundled linens, and argued in whispers over what belonged to the caterer. I did not drink the coffee. The smell of it filled the room and made my refusal feel theatrical, but picking it up would have felt worse. Every few minutes, Daniel asked where something went. "Where do you keep the crystal boxes?" "Upstairs closet." "Which closet?" "The one where you put the lamp." "Where are the garbage bags?" Under the sink. Where does this platter go? You took it from the bottom of the china cabinet. After the fourth question, I folded the newspaper. Daniel, you lived here for 22 years. I didn't organize your cabinets when I was 22. No, that would have interrupted your busy schedule of bringing laundry home. He almost smiled. The old rhythm reached across the kitchen between us. For a second, I wanted to take it. Then Paige walked in, carrying one of Tom's crystal glasses by the rim. Where does this go? Daniel pointed upstairs. Boxes in the closet with the bad lamp. It is not a bad lamp, I said. It's a very yellow lamp. I laughed before I could stop myself. Paige looked from me to Daniel, and her face softened. Can we please just start over? There it was, the door I had always opened. I got up and took the crystal from her carefully. No. Her hand remained raised after I removed the glass. No, Daniel said. Not like this. Like what? Like nothing happened because we managed one joke. Paige dropped her hand. Nobody is saying nothing happened. Then say what happened. I made a mistake with the seating chart. You decided the most removable person was me. That is not what I decided. You had extra guests. You needed a chair. You looked around my house and decided the woman who had opened it to you was the one who didn't count. Paige's eyes filled, but her voice hardened. I didn't think you would care where you ate. I believed her. That hurt more than if she had admitted wanting to humiliate me. Daniel said, she thought you were helping with the caterers. She asked me to dress like them. I didn't mean it that way, Paige said. You don't have to mean something for it to be true. Daniel pressed both hands against the counter. What exactly do you want us to do? I want you to finish cleaning. And after that, I placed the crystal glass beside the sink. After that, my house is no longer available for your parties. Neither of them spoke. It was almost satisfying, but not quite. Satisfaction is warm. What I felt was cold and frightening, like stepping onto a staircase in the dark and discovering one more step than expected. Paige recovered first. We weren't planning another party. This is not only about parties. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What else is it about? I'm not organizing your holidays. I'm not keeping your birthday lists or reminding you to call relatives. I'm not hosting your colleagues because your dining room is too small. I'm not making food for gatherings where I'm treated as part of the setup. Who asked you to keep birthday lists? You did, every time you called and said, Mom, when is Uncle Ray's birthday? That's asking a question. It's always just one question, one recipe, one reservation, one extra chair, one night. Paige folded her arms. So this is punishment? No, punishment would be me choosing something that hurts you. I'm choosing to stop doing things that hurt me. That is a very convenient distinction. It's also the truth. Daniel began pacing between the kitchen table and the back door. You can't resign from being part of a family. I'm not resigning, it sounds like it. I'm retiring from unpaid management. You're our mother, not our manager. Then this should be easy. He stopped. Paige looked toward the dining room where half the table had been cleared. All this because your dinner was in a container. No, I said, because my son watched you put it there. Daniel flinched as if I had thrown something. He looked at me, but he spoke to Paige. Can you give us a minute? She laughed again. Of course. Now it's private. Please. No, I'll finish the linens. God forbid they go back in the wrong bags and become a symbol. When she left, Daniel waited until we heard the pocket doors slide closed. That was unnecessary, he said. Which part? You know she gets defensive when she feels attacked. And you know I don't. That's why I'm easier? His jaw moved. I was trying to keep the evening from becoming a scene. So you let me become invisible. You left before we could fix it. You had already fixed it. My name was on the staff container. He looked at the floor. For the first time since the night before, he seemed to picture the container, not the general problem, not Paige's stress, not 34 guests. A black plastic box with my name written across it. I didn't know she did that, he said. Lena asked where to send my plate. I thought it was temporary. Did you? He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know. Everything was happening at once. That is what people say when they don't like the choice they made. I'm sorry. The words came out flat and exhausted. I waited. He looked up. What? For the rest of it. What rest? What are you sorry for? He spread his hands. For how the night went. The night didn't do anything. His face closed again. You've made your point, he said. Can you accept an apology without taking it apart? I'll let you know when I get one. He went into the dining room and shut the pocket doors behind him. For the next 2 hours, I heard my family cleaning on the other side. When they finished, the rooms looked almost normal. The rental chairs were stacked on the porch. Tom's crystal was boxed upstairs. The photographs were still in my hall closet where Paige had put them to clear the piano. Daniel carried the last bag outside without saying goodbye. Paige stood at the open front door, one hand on the knob. I really did want you to enjoy the evening, she said. I looked at her. She seemed sincere, which did not help either of us. I wanted you to enjoy watching it, she corrected. Maybe that's not the same thing. It was the closest she had come to honesty. No, I said, it isn't. She nodded and left. I closed the door, walked to the hall closet, and brought out the photographs one at a time. Yellowstone went back on the piano. Daniel's graduation went beside it. My sister and I, blurred with laughter, returned to the side table. The wedding photograph stayed in my hands longer than the others. In it, Paige was looking at Daniel. Daniel was looking at me. I remembered him squeezing my fingers before I walked to my seat, whispering, "Don't let me mess this up." I put the photograph back. Then I went into the pantry, cut myself a slice of lemon cake, and ate it standing at the counter. By Wednesday, Daniel still had not called. I told myself I enjoyed the quiet until the quiet began answering back. The refrigerator began to sound judgmental. It clicked on when I entered the kitchen and clicked off when I left, as if it had nothing to add. The dining room clock ticked louder than I remembered. Even the floorboards seemed disappointed by the lack of traffic. On Thursday morning, I received a text from Paige. I am sorry the evening ended badly. It was never my intention for you to feel excluded. I hope we can all move forward when emotions settle. I read it while standing in the grocery store beside a pyramid of oranges. There were 4 sentences available to her there, and she had managed to make every one of them passive. The evening had ended itself. My feelings had wandered off without supervision. Emotions needed to settle, presumably somewhere away from her clean surfaces. I put the phone in my purse and bought 3 oranges I did not need. Ruth came over that afternoon carrying pruning shears and a paper bag from Delaney's bakery. She lived 4 blocks away, had known me since Daniel was in college, and believed all emotional emergencies should include carbohydrates and sharp tools. I brought bear claws, she announced. Are we pruning bears? We're pruning that hydrangea you've been threatening since April. The pastries are for courage. Ruth was 71. 5 feet tall, and constitutionally incapable of arriving empty-handed. Her silver hair was cut close around her face, and she wore large purple glasses that made every expression look editorial. She set the bag on my counter and looked at me. What? You tell me I didn't call you here for an intervention. You didn't call me at all. That's why I came. I've had a busy week. Ruth glanced around the silent kitchen. Doing what? Listening to appliances? I poured coffee. She waited until I sat down before asking, "What happened Saturday? Who told you something happened?" Daniel called me yesterday. That surprised me enough that I put my cup down. Why? He wanted to know if you were all right. He has my number. I mentioned that. What did he say? That you left the anniversary dinner without telling anyone and now you've decided not to host family events. He skipped a portion. I assumed. I told her. Not dramatically. Ruth was impossible to shock in a satisfying way because she had worked 38 years as an emergency room nurse and regarded most human behavior as either treatable or terminal. Still, when I repeated Paige's sentence about the staff trays, Ruth stopped tearing her bear claw in half. She said that in your house? Yes. And Daniel? I told her that too. Ruth leaned back. Well, exactly. No. Well, is what I say before I choose between useful advice and driving to their house with a brick. The useful advice, please. That's disappointing. She took a bite, chewed, and brushed sugar from her thumb. Are you all right? I'm angry. That wasn't the question. I don't know yet. She nodded. Ruth could make silence feel companionable, which is a rarer gift than people think. I showed her Paige's message. Ruth read it twice. That is a beautifully upholstered non-apology. I thought so. Are you going to answer? No. Good. I looked at her. What? She said. I can support maturity tomorrow. We took our coffee outside. The garden had suffered during the preparations because I'd spent 2 weeks worrying about chair covers instead of deadheading roses. Ruth went after the hydrangea with the focus of a surgeon. You're cutting too much, I said. It blooms on new wood. It looks frightened. Growth is frightening. You rehearsed that. I read it on the tag. I held the paper yard bag while she cut. For 20 minutes, we discussed branches instead of family. Then Ruth said, He called because he wants me to talk sense into you. I knew that. He didn't use those words. What words did he use? He said you listened to me. That was optimistic. He said Paige feels terrible. Paige should try telling Paige's face. Ruth clipped a branch and let it fall. He also said, this seems bigger than one bad night. I tightened my grip on the bag. It is, I said. I figured. Then why are you looking at me like that? Because I'm wondering why it took one bad night for you to say so. I stared at the back of her head. Ruth cut another branch. Careful, I said. You're running out of hydrangea. Plenty left. You know what I meant. She turned. Yes. I didn't know it was bigger until Saturday. That's not true. I felt heat rise under my collar. You don't get to tell me what I knew. No. But I remember Thanksgiving when Paige changed the mealtime twice, and you apologized to everyone for the confusion. I remember Daniel asking you to host his department dinner 2 days after you had the flu. I remember you leaving my birthday lunch because he needed somebody to let a repairman into his house. He was working. So were you, at my birthday lunch. That's not work. Exactly. I shoved a handful of branches into the bag. I liked helping them. I know. They appreciated me. Sometimes. You're making it sound as if I've spent 20 years crawling around after them. Ruth rested the shears against her thigh. No. I'm saying you trained them to expect the version of you who never reached the bottom of the tank. They are adults. I didn't train them. You raised one of them. The anger came fast and clean. So this is my fault. I didn't say that. You said I trained Daniel to treat me like staff. I said you taught him that you would make things easy. Because I loved him. I know. She said it softly, and that made me angrier. I dropped the yard bag. Branches spilled across my shoes. There. Growth, I said. Very frightening. I went inside and left her in the garden. Ruth did not follow me. I stood at the sink, staring through the window while she gathered the branches herself. My hands shook, which seemed excessive. I wanted her to come in and apologize. I wanted her to leave. I wanted Daniel to call and say something that would make her wrong. Instead, Ruth tied the bag, set it by the gate, and sat on the back steps. After 10 minutes, I opened the door. You missed a branch, I said. She looked beside her. I left it for new growth. That isn't how detached branches work. Then come sit down and explain horticulture to me. I sat. She passed me the other bear claw wrapped in wax paper. I'm not blaming you, she said. I'm blaming them. But if you're going to change the arrangement, you need to understand the arrangement. I tore off one corner of the pastry. You could have waited until after I ate. I'm 71. I don't have time for leisurely honesty. We sat with our shoulders almost touching. I miss him, I said. Daniel? I nodded. It's been 4 days, Ruth said. I'm aware. You can miss somebody and still let them be uncomfortable. That sounds like another tag. No, that one cost me 2 marriages. I laughed, and she nudged my shoe with hers. Sunday mornings had a shape in my house. I went to the market by 9, started whatever needed simmering by 11, and called Daniel around noon to ask whether they were coming at 5 or 6. He always said 5 and arrived closer to 6. That Sunday, I stayed in my robe until 10:30. At 11, I began making a grocery list out of habit. Chicken, carrots, parsley, rolls. I tore it off the pad, stared at it, and wrote light bulbs on the back. At noon 12, Daniel texted, "What time should we come over?" I looked at the message until the screen dimmed. I had told him I was done hosting. He had heard a speech delivered during an argument, something temporary and decorative. Sunday dinner existed outside conflict. It was an institution, like gravity or the post office. I typed, "I'm not cooking dinner today." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Are you not feeling well?" "I'm fine." A minute passed. So this is still happening. I set the phone down. At 12:30, it rang. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hi," I said. "What does 'I'm fine' mean?" "It usually means 'I'm fine.'" "Mom, I'm asking if you're sick." "I'm not." "Then why aren't we having dinner?" "Because I'm not making it. We can bring something." "That's kind, but I have plans." The plans were to wash towels and change the batteries in the hallway smoke detector. I felt no obligation to explain their quality. Daniel went quiet. "With who?" "Why does that matter?" "It doesn't. I'm trying to have a conversation." "No, you're trying to determine whether my plans are real enough to interfere with yours. Paige said you'd do this." I almost admired how efficiently he found the worst possible sentence. "What did Paige say I'd do?" "Make us guess the new rules." I stated the rule clearly. "You said you weren't organizing holidays or hosting parties. Sunday dinner isn't a party. It is to the person buying, cooking, serving, and cleaning. We always help clean. You carry plates to the counter. That's helping." "You're right." "I'm sorry I failed to issue certificates." He breathed out through his nose. "There's no reason to be sarcastic. There is an abundance of reason. Can we come over or not?" "Not today." He went silent again. "All right," he said finally. "Enjoy your plans." He hung up before I could answer. I carried the phone into the laundry room and stood in front of the washing machine. The towels did not need washing. The smoke detector did not need a battery. I had changed it the month before. At 3, I called Ruth. "You doing anything tonight?" I asked. "Bar trivia at Murphy's." "That sounds terrible." "It is. We need somebody who knows presidents. I know the disappointing ones, so all of them. I'll pick you up at 5. Murphy's was crowded, loud, and determined to decorate every available wall with a license plate. Ruth's team consisted of a retired accountant named Leon, a former librarian named June, not my diner waitress, and a woman called Bev, who sold real estate and answered every question with the confidence of someone guessing in public. They greeted me as if Ruth had promised them a specialist. "What's your category?" Leon asked. "Things people should have said sooner." He considered this. "We could use that." The first question was about a pop singer I had never heard of. The second involved baseball. I knew the third answer was James Madison, but Bev overruled me with Millard Fillmore. It was not a good evening. The table was sticky. The nachos were cold. At 6:10, I checked my phone and saw no messages from Daniel. Then June asked how Ruth and I knew each other, and Ruth said, "She tried to fire me from her garden. She was maiming a hydrangea," I said. Leon lifted his glass. "Some things survive bad pruning." I looked at Ruth. She did not smile or turn it into a lesson. She simply stole one of my cold nachos. We finished 6th out of 8 teams. When I got home, the house smelled like nothing. I stood in the kitchen and pictured Daniel and Paige eating takeout at their own table, discussing my stubbornness between bites. I had wanted them to notice my absence. I had not understood that I would have to live inside it too. For the next hour, I moved through rooms that did not need me. I straightened a pillow, put one clean glass in the dishwasher, and opened the pantry even though I wasn't hungry. The last of the lemon cake sat beneath its glass cover. I cut a piece, took one bite, and threw the rest away. That felt melodramatic, so I took it out of the trash, wrapped it properly, and put it in the freezer. Grief may be irrational, but it does not excuse wasting cake. The phone rang Monday morning while I was watering the fern in the front window. Tom's sister-in-law Susan appeared on the screen. "I am calling with a logistical question," she said after we exchanged greetings, "and I need you to promise not to interpret it as criticism. That sounds like criticism wearing sensible shoes. Ray wants to know if the restaurant has prime rib." "I don't know." "You chose the restaurant. I suggested it." "Well, that counts as choosing in this family." Friday was Ray's retirement dinner. He was Tom's younger brother by 6 years and had spent 39 years working for the city's water department. Although every time someone mentioned it, he said, 38 years and 11 months. Don't give them the extra month. The dinner had been on the family calendar since January. Susan made the reservation herself, but I had recommended Bellini's because it had a private back room and allowed Ray to order steak without learning the word reduction. "They have rib-eye," I said. "I don't know about prime rib. Ray says those are not the same." "They're not. I was hoping you wouldn't know that." She sighed. In the background, I heard Ray ask whether she was talking to me. "Yes," Susan called. "Ask her if Daniel's coming." "He is," I answered before she repeated it. He and Paige both responded. "Good." "Ray has a little speech for him." "About what?" "Something about carrying on the Mercer tradition of pretending to understand retirement accounts." I smiled. Ray loved Daniel with the particular loyalty of an uncle who had never needed to discipline him. After Tom died, Ray began calling Daniel every other Tuesday. Neither of them acknowledged the schedule. Susan lowered her voice. "I heard there was trouble at the anniversary party. News travels. You know Ray. If he gets 3 facts and a sandwich, he'll build a whole investigation. What facts does he have?" "That you left early?" Paige cried on Sunday, "and somebody ate with the caterers." "I did not eat with the caterers. I told him that didn't sound like you." I pinched a brown leaf from the fern. "What does that mean?" "You don't like eating," standing up. "Susan." "All right. What happened?" I considered telling her. I also considered saying nothing. Silence had always been my preferred family currency because it held its value and made everyone else comfortable. "Paige removed my place at the table," I said. When the caterer asked where to put my meal, Paige said it could go with the staff trays. Daniel said I wouldn't make a thing of it. Susan did not respond immediately. "Well," she said at last, "that was unkind." "Yes, I'm sure she was overwhelmed." She was. And Daniel hates conflict. He does. I'm not excusing it. You just gave each of them an excuse. She sighed again. "I don't want this hanging over Ray's dinner. Neither do I. Maybe Friday could be a reset." There it was. My first official invitation to make everybody else feel better. A reset for whom? For all of you. Sit together, have a drink, remember you love each other. I remember. You know what I mean. I do. That's the problem. Ellen, somebody has to be the bigger person. I looked at the fern. I had been watering it for too long. A thin stream ran from the saucer onto the windowsill. "I have been the bigger person for 20 years, I said. "I'm tired of needing special clothing. That's not fair. It isn't." She was quiet. "I only want a nice dinner for Ray," she said, "and I want him to have one. I won't bring it up. Thank you. But I'm not fixing it either. I didn't ask you to. Not directly." After we hung up, I wiped the windowsill and opened the family calendar on my phone. Ray's retirement dinner sat on Friday at 6:30. Daniel and Paige had accepted the invitation months earlier. Daniel's name was right beneath mine. My thumb hovered over the message icon. Usually, I would have texted him then. "Don't forget Ray's dinner Friday. He wants you there early. Wear the navy jacket, not the gray one, because Bellini's back room is cold." I could practically see the message. Daniel would answer with a thumbs up. Friday afternoon, I would text again. He would arrive at 6:40 in the gray jacket and kiss me, as if my reminders were a charming maternal habit rather than the reason he was present. I locked the phone. It was not a test. I told myself that several times. He was 46. The dinner was on his calendar. Susan had sent the invitation, the restaurant address, and 2 follow-up emails about parking. If I reminded him, I would be doing exactly what I said I had stopped doing. If I did not remind him and he forgot, I would know something I did not want to know. On Friday, I put on a green dress and arrived at Bellini's at 6:15. Susan was arranging gold paper stars around a framed photograph of Ray wearing a hard hat in 1985. He looked personally offended by safety regulations. Those are crooked, I told her. So is he. Ray came up behind me and kissed my cheek. Daniel here? Not yet. He'll be late. Mercer men like to make an entrance. Mercer men like women to make excuses for them. Ray grinned. That too. The back room held 18 people at 2 long tables. Tom's old work friend Howard came with his wife. Ray's supervisor brought a retirement plaque. 2 cousins drove in from Maryland and complained about traffic with such enjoyment that I suspected it was the reason they traveled. At 6:40, Susan looked toward the door. At 6:45, she checked her phone. Have you heard from them? She asked me. No. Would you call? No. She blinked. Why not? Because you invited him. I know, but he always answers you. He also has your number. Her mouth tightened. This isn't the time. I agree. I went to help Ray's cousin Carol untangle a necklace clasp. When I returned to the table, Daniel and Paige's chairs were still empty. We ordered without them. Ray delivered his speech after the entrees. He thanked Susan for tolerating 39 years of early alarms, thanked his coworkers for teaching him which regulations mattered and which could be handled with donuts, and raised his glass to Tom. My brother should be here, he said. His voice caught on the last word. He cleared his throat and pointed at me. Ellen knows he'd hate all this attention. He'd have given a longer speech than you, I said, only because he enjoyed hearing himself. Everyone laughed. Then Ray looked at the empty chair beside me. I had something prepared for Daniel, he said. I'll tell him another time. He folded a small piece of paper and put it in his shirt pocket. That was the moment I nearly called. I imagined Daniel at home, not realizing what he had forgotten. I imagined him arriving breathless, apologizing to Ray, blaming a long week. He would be embarrassed, but he would be there. I could still rescue the evening from the empty chair. My phone was in my purse against my ankle. I left it there. We took photographs after dessert. Susan insisted on one with every relative, which required moving chairs and ordering Howard to stand up straight. Ray held his plaque. I stood beside him. Daniel's absence occupied the gap on my other side even after Carol moved into it. At 8:20, while the waiter poured coffee, my phone began vibrating. Daniel. I let it stop. He called again immediately. Susan saw the screen. Answer him. I stepped into the hallway. Hi, I said. Was Ray's dinner tonight? Behind me, the room erupted in laughter at something Howard had said. Yes. Oh, God. I heard movement, then Paige asking him a question in the background. What time is it? He said. It started at 6:30. Why didn't you call me? The question came so quickly there was no space for shame before blame. It was on your calendar. I know it was on my calendar. I thought it was next Friday. Susan sent an email Wednesday. I've had a brutal week. We both have. I'm sure. Is everyone still there? We're having coffee. We can be there in 20 minutes. It takes 35 minutes from your house. Then we'll be there in 35. Ray is leaving soon. Daniel swore under his breath. Can you ask him to wait? No. Mom, it's his retirement dinner, not a dentist appointment. I'm not asking him to sit here because you forgot. You knew I forgot. I knew you weren't here. That's not what I mean. You knew earlier. You could have reminded me. Yes. The word stopped him. You did this on purpose, he said. No, I simply didn't prevent it. That's the same thing. It only feels the same because you thought prevention was my job. He breathed hard into the phone. I cannot believe you let me miss this to prove a point. I didn't let you miss anything. I did not control your car, your calendar, or your choices. You knew Uncle Ray wanted me here. So did you. "Mom, put him on the phone." I went back into the room. Ray saw my face and stood. "Is that Daniel?" I held out the phone. Ray took it, listened, and said, "No, don't drive over. We're wrapping up." He listened again. His expression was not angry. That made it worse. "I know you're sorry," he said. "We'll talk Tuesday." He handed the phone back without saying goodbye. Daniel was still there. "Are you happy now?" he asked. I looked at Ray, folding his speech smaller and pushing it deeper into his pocket. "No," I said. "I'm not." I ended the call. Carol watched me return to my chair. She waited until Ray began opening his gifts, then leaned close. "You could have reminded him," she whispered. "Yes." Her eyebrows rose. "That's cold, Ellen." Across the table, Susan was pretending not to hear. I folded my napkin and placed it beside my coffee. Everyone had been happy for me to stop mothering Daniel until the moment they felt the inconvenience of his being responsible for himself. I stayed until Ray left. Then I drove home with my phone turned off for the second Friday in a row. The silence lasted until I plugged the phone into its charger. Then it came alive like an angry insect. 3 missed calls from Daniel, 1 from Paige, 2 from Susan, a message from Carol that began, "I love you, but," which is how relatives announce they are about to enjoy correcting you. Daniel's messages were brief, "Call me." Then, "Ray is really hurt." Then, 12 minutes later, "I hope this was worth it." I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand. Tom's side of the mattress still dipped slightly near the middle, though he had been gone 4 years. I used to roll toward that hollow in my sleep. Eventually, I learned to stay on my own side. I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. The first defended me. The second accused him. The third said, "It wasn't worth it." That was the only honest one, which was why I could not send it. At 8 the next morning, somebody knocked hard enough to make the Yellowstone photograph tremble on the piano. Ray stood on the porch holding a bakery box and wearing the expression he used when a waiter brought him the wrong potato. "If you're here to tell me I'm cruel, Carol already sent a preview. Carol thinks paprika is spicy. Why would I send her to speak for me?" I let him in. He put the box on the kitchen table. "Susan ordered too much cake." "That has never happened." "Fine." I stole cake from my own retirement dinner. He removed his coat and draped it over the back of a chair. "You want coffee?" I asked. "Yes." "Prime rib." Not funny. It was a little funny. He gave me a reluctant smile. Ray had Tom's eyebrows and none of his height. As he aged, the resemblance had become more visible in pieces. The slope of one shoulder, the way he pressed his lips together before saying something difficult, his stubborn attachment to shirts with chest pockets. I poured the coffee. Ray opened the bakery box and cut 2 pieces of chocolate cake, though it was barely 8:15. "Daniel called you?" I asked. "Last night and this morning." "What did he say?" "That you knew he'd forgotten and deliberately didn't remind him." "I didn't know he'd forgotten." I suspected. Ray chewed slowly. "That's a lawyer's answer. You worked for the water department. I watched legal dramas. I put down my fork. He had the invitation. He accepted it. He had a calendar reminder. Why is the entire family acting as if I hid his car keys? Because you always remind him. I don't anymore." "I know. Do you?" He looked into his coffee. "I told him it was his fault," he said. "I told him he's 46 and if he can manage a team of 30 people, he can locate Bellinis on a Friday night. Thank you. I'm not finished. You and Ruth should form a club. We have one. It meets whenever you're stubborn." I leaned back. Ray folded his hands on the table. "Was any part of you waiting for him to fail?" The question was so close to Ruth's that I felt surrounded. "No." He held my gaze. "I wanted him to remember," I said. "That's not what I asked." I got up and carried my plate to the sink, though I had eaten only 2 bites. "Maybe," I said. "A small part. How small?" "Small enough that I don't appreciate the interrogation." Ray nodded as if that were an answer. "I was tired of being told none of the things I did mattered," I said. I wanted him to see what happened when I stopped doing them. And he saw. Did he? He still thinks I caused it. Right now, he does. Then what was I supposed to do? I don't know, Ellen. I came for coffee, not divine wisdom. You came to accuse me. I came because I don't want my retirement dinner turned into evidence in whatever case the two of you are building. That quieted me. Ray took the folded paper from his shirt pocket and placed it on the table. You kept your speech, I said. It's not a speech. It's a story about Daniel and Tom. I reached for it, but Ray put his palm over the paper. It's for him. I wasn't going to read it. You absolutely were. I was going to smooth it. You can't iron paper. You know what I mean. I do. He slipped it back into his pocket. I'm having lunch with him Tuesday. Good. He asked me to bring the paper. Something in my chest loosened. He feels terrible, Ray said. He should. Yes, he should. You don't have to rescue him from that, but don't start needing him to fail either. That'll rot both of you. I looked down at the table. Tom would have reminded him, I said. Tom would have called him 6 times and then complained all night that Daniel needed 6 calls. That's true. He also would have hated what happened at your house. Ray had not mentioned the anniversary dinner directly. Hearing him say it made my eyes sting. I keep thinking about his chair, I said. Ray looked toward the dining room. Paige put flowers where his chair used to be. Tom never liked flowers on the table, said he couldn't see over them. They were very low flowers. He would have found a way. I laughed, then covered my face with one hand. Ray reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. I'm mad at Daniel, he said, not because he missed dinner, because I know why you're doing this and he doesn't want to know yet. After he left, I carried the untouched half of my cake to the counter. The house was quiet again, but it felt less accusing. Ray would meet Daniel on Tuesday. He would tell the story. They would have a relationship that did not pass through me. I had spent years saying I wanted that. I had not expected it to feel like losing a job. Ruth called just before noon. Are you busy? I'm performing surgery on a retirement cake. Is that a euphemism? It took me a second to recognize my own joke coming back. No. Chocolate. Good. Come to the community center at 1. Why? Leon's supper group needs help. The accountant from trivia? The retired accountant from trivia. He believes the adjective is important. What kind of help? The woman who organizes their recovery meals is having shoulder surgery, which is either bad timing or aggressive market research. I opened the refrigerator. Inside were 3 oranges, half a carton of eggs, and more room than a family refrigerator should have. I don't think I'm ready to organize anyone's meals. You don't have to organize. Just come listen. I'm trying to stop doing unpaid work. Then don't work. Sit in a chair and be disappointing. That does sound restful. The community center occupied an old brick schoolhouse with floors that smelled faintly of wax and wet coats. In the multi-purpose room, 12 adults sat around folding tables with coffee, notebooks, and a plate of grocery store cookies. A sign taped to the wall said, Porch Light Suppers. Leon waved me over. Our presidential consultant. I was overruled on Madison. Bev has been placed on probation. Bev, seated beside him, slid a cookie toward me. Oppressive leadership. The group began years earlier as a monthly potluck, then started delivering meals whenever one of its members came home from surgery or a hospital stay. Eventually, neighbors asked for help. Nobody had to belong to a church or qualify through an agency. Someone needed dinner for 2 weeks, and somebody else had a casserole dish. Marlene, the current coordinator, wore her right arm in a sling, even though her surgery was still 10 days away. Prehabilitation, she explained. I'm practicing being helpless. I hate it. A man named George was recovering from hip replacement. A woman named Dana would have wrist surgery the following week. Both lived alone. Marlene had sign-up sheets for cooks, drivers, and people willing to call and make sure meals had arrived. I'm not asking anyone to take over, she said while looking directly at me, because Ruth had clearly betrayed me in advance. I only need somebody to keep the lists straight until I can type again. Everyone turned toward Leon. He raised both hands. I did payroll for 28 years. I will not manage lasagna. I studied the sheets. Names were written in 3 colors of ink. Tuesday appeared twice. Nobody had volunteered for Friday. One person had signed up to cook for Dana and deliver to George. "This address is wrong," I said. Marlene leaned over. "How do you know? The zip code doesn't match the street." Leon pointed at Ruth. "You said she was good. I said she was bossy. I am sitting here," I told them. Within 15 minutes, I had reorganized the sheets. It happened without drama. Nobody handed me a binder. Nobody told me how lucky I was to be useful. I asked whether Dana liked spicy food, and Dana answered for herself. George admitted he hated mushrooms with the seriousness of a man disclosing an allergy. Bev offered to take Friday delivery if someone else cooked. "We can pair cooks and drivers," I said. "That way no one person has to do both." Marlene nodded. "That's smarter." She simply said it. No surprise, no relief that I had saved them, no affectionate joke about how I always made things happen. Smarter. The word sat differently. By the end of the meeting, I had agreed to coordinate 2 weeks of meals. Only 2. Marlene gave me the folder, and I said it out loud again so everyone heard. "I can do 2 weeks." 2 weeks, she agreed. No one asked about the 3rd. On the way home, Ruth stopped at a red light and glanced at the folder in my lap. "You look pleased with yourself." I corrected a zip code, heroic, and developed a delivery pairing system, naturally. I ran my thumb along the folder's edge. They asked, "So do Daniel and Paige?" "No, they assume." Ruth turned onto my street. "There's the difference. And I can stop after 2 weeks. There's another." When she pulled into my driveway, Daniel's car was parked at the curb. He stood on my porch with one hand in his pocket and a dish towel draped over his shoulder. On the step beside him sat the blue casserole dish I had lent Paige 6 months earlier. Ruth looked at me. "Want me to stay?" "No." "Want me to circle the block very slowly?" "I'm not being held hostage." "Blink twice if he asks for a recipe." I got out. Daniel watched Ruth drive away, then looked at the folder under my arm. "You've been busy," he said. "A little." He lifted the casserole dish. "I brought this back. That was sudden. Can I come in?" I unlocked the door. He followed me to the kitchen and set the dish on the counter. The towel, I noticed, was mine too. Daniel removed it and folded it with unnecessary care. "Uncle Ray came to see you," he said. "Yes, he's meeting me Tuesday." "I know." He looked at the Porchlight Suppers folder in my hand. "What's that?" "Something I volunteered for." His eyes remained on it. "Doing what?" "Coordinating meals for people recovering from surgery." He gave a short laugh. I set the folder down. "What's funny?" "Nothing." It didn't sound like nothing. He looked toward the silent dining room, then back at me. "You won't cook Sunday dinner for your own family," he said, "but you'll organize food for strangers?" "Yes." The word came out before I could soften it. Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "At least you're honest. I'm not choosing strangers over you. What would you call it?" "I call it volunteering." "You volunteered for us for years." "No, Daniel, I volunteered once, and nobody noticed when it became my permanent position." He looked at the folder again. "So these people are better because they gave you a sign-up sheet?" It helped. "This is ridiculous." "Then why are you upset?" "I'm not upset. You returned a casserole dish on a Saturday afternoon with my towel folded over your shoulder." He looked down as if the towel had betrayed him. "Paige found it," he said. "In what dangerous location?" "Our pantry. And it couldn't wait." He pulled out a chair but did not sit. "I came to talk to you. Then talk." He glanced toward the coffee maker. Normally, I would have filled it before he took off his coat. He noticed me noticing. "I'm fine," he said. "I didn't ask." "Right." Daniel sat. I remained standing on the other side of the counter. Between us, the blue casserole dish shone with the oily brightness of something recently washed. "Paige thinks you hate her," he said. "I don't. She thinks you've hated her for years." Then Paige has confused being disagreed with for being hated. You make little comments. She makes little comments, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, I usually do. He rubbed both hands over his face. This is impossible. No, it's uncomfortable. Those are different. Did Ruth give you a book of lines? Ruth gives me pastries and unwanted observations. He smiled despite himself, then lost it. I miss you, he said. 3 words, quietly delivered. No audience, no champagne glass, no one calling him from the other room. I sat down. I miss you too. Then why are we doing this? I nearly answered the way I always had. We're not doing anything. It'll pass. Come for dinner tomorrow. The invitation rose into my throat, whole and familiar. Because missing you isn't a reason to go back to what hurt me, I said. His eyes dropped to the table. You could have told me before the party. Told you what? That you felt used. I didn't know how used I felt until you decided it was acceptable to feed me in the kitchen. He winced. I didn't decide that. You approved it. For 5 minutes, maybe. I thought we'd rearrange something after people sat down. You didn't come back. I was hosting. So was I, apparently. I just wasn't a guest. He stood and walked to the sink. He looked out the window at the hydrangea Ruth had reduced to sticks. What happened to that bush? Growth. Is that supposed to be funny? Not really. He turned. I talked to Paige about what she said. And she knows it was wrong. That is not the same as being sorry. She sent you a message. She sent me weather. What does that mean? She said the evening ended badly. The evening did not remove my chair. Daniel leaned against the sink. She is ashamed. Then why am I carrying it? He opened his mouth, then closed it. For a few seconds, he looked like the boy who had once broken Tom's drill and placed it neatly back in the case, hoping order would disguise damage. I had found the snapped bit, bought a replacement, and told Tom the motor had burned out. The memory arrived without permission. What? Daniel asked. Nothing. You looked at me strangely. I was remembering something. What? Your father's drill? He frowned, then recognition slowly moved across his face. That old red one? You broke it. I did not. You were 16. The motor died. The motor was fine. His mouth opened. I could see him calculating backward through 30 years. You told Dad it died. Yes. Why? Because he'd warned you not to use it on the concrete steps, and you used it anyway. Daniel stared at me. I thought he knew. He didn't. You let me think I got away with that? I helped you get away with it. He gave a disbelieving laugh. Why are we talking about a drill? Because maybe Ruth is right. His face changed at her name. About what? I spent a long time making sure consequences didn't reach you. That is not what happened Saturday. No, Saturday was what happened when I stopped. He pushed away from the sink. So Ray's dinner was a lesson. I'm not proud of the part of me that wanted you to notice. There it is. But you still missed it. I know. Do you? Yes, Mom. I know. I felt awful since last night. I called him twice. I'm meeting him Tuesday. I am handling it. The last sentence struck both of us. Daniel looked almost surprised to hear himself say it. Good, I said. He folded my dish towel again, though it was already folded. He told me there's a story he wanted to share. There is. Do you know what it is? No. That answer felt clean. Daniel set the towel beside the casserole dish. Are we ever having Sunday dinner again? I don't know. That's a little dramatic. It's honest. So what do I do? There was the question beneath all his others. Not what do we do? What do I do to return the world to its previous settings? You could invite me to dinner, I said. At our house? Is there another house you control? We don't have room. There are 3 of us. He looked embarrassed. I didn't mean room. Paige isn't ready. Then you're not ready to have dinner. What if I came here and cooked? Do you know how? I make food. You heat food. That qualifies. It does at your house. He gave me a crooked smile. "You really won't make this easy. I am trying not to." He left without coffee, taking nothing but his car keys. The casserole, dish, and towel remained on my counter. I could not decide whether that counted as returning them. On Tuesday, I did not call Ray. At 4:20, he texted, "Had lunch." He listened. It's his to tell. I read the message several times and answered with a heart, then erased it because Ray distrusted symbols. I wrote thank you instead. My 2 weeks with porch light suppers became busier than I expected and lighter than they had any right to be. I phoned Dana to ask about food preferences. "No tuna casserole," she said. "Because of an allergy? Because tuna casserole is punishment." "Anything else?" "No raisins in savory food. That should be a law." "I like you." Dana was 59 and had injured her wrist trying to move a bookcase without emptying it first. She lived in a second-floor apartment with a green door and owned more scarves than furniture. When I delivered the first meal, she tried to open the container one-handed, refused help twice, then surrendered it with bad grace. "I hate needing people," she said. "That makes 2 of us." "You don't look needy, neither do you." She considered that, then handed me a jar she could not open. George was different. He wanted conversation more than food and had a fresh complaint prepared for every delivery. "The potatoes are under-seasoned," he told me. "I didn't cook them. I'm providing feedback. I will file it with the volunteer potatoes." He grinned and asked if I could stay for coffee. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I said no. That was new too. Nobody collapsed when I left after 10 minutes. Nobody loved me less because I did not refill the sugar bowl. Dana once asked me to pick up dry cleaning on my way over, and I said the group delivered meals, not errands. "Oh," she said. "Fair enough." That was all. No accusation, no injury, no extended family tribunal. By the end of the second week, Marlene could use her left hand well enough to type. She called while I was matching drivers with addresses. "You can give the folder back Friday," she said, "unless you want to stay involved." I waited for her to persuade me. She did not. "I could coordinate 1 week a month," I said. "That would be wonderful. 1 week. I heard you." I wrote it on the calendar. Daniel called that evening. "Quick question," he said. "They always are. Do you remember that mustard sauce Dad used to make for ham?" "Yes. Paige wants it for the family dinner next Sunday." "What family dinner?" A pause. "At Bellini's." "You're serving mustard sauce at Bellini's?" "No, I got mixed up. She wants the recipe for Christmas. The dinner next Sunday is for everyone." "Everyone?" "Uncle Ray, Susan, Carol, Howard, and Lynn, a few others. And me? Of course you. No one had told me." "Paige thought a restaurant would be neutral," he added. "Neutral territory? Don't say it that way." "How should I say it?" "She wants the family together without anybody having to host, meaning without me having the advantage of my own front door." "When is it?" 6. I'll send the details." "All right. And the mustard sauce?" "I'll write it down." "Could you text it?" I said I'll write it down. He exhaled. "Fine. Anything else?" "No." Neither of us hung up. "How did lunch with Ray go?" I asked. "Good." I waited. "He told me the story," Daniel said. "What was it?" He said it's mine to tell. Ray's exact phrasing returned intact. "All right," I said. "Mom? Yes? Are you coming Sunday?" I said I was. "I know. I just wanted to make sure." After we hung up, I wrote the mustard sauce recipe on an index card. Butter, flour, dry mustard, brown sugar, vinegar. At the bottom, I added, "Taste before adding salt." Tom always forgot. Then I placed the card in my purse and wondered what kind of family needed neutral territory to eat dinner. Bellini's had changed the carpet. I noticed before I noticed my family, which may say something unflattering about my priorities. The old burgundy pattern was gone, replaced by gray swirls that looked like smoke damage. Paige would have approved. She had reserved a long table near the back, not the private room where Ray's retirement dinner had been. Daniel stood when I approached. "You came?" he said. "I generally do, when I say I will." His face registered the correction, but he pulled out the chair beside him without comment. There was no place card. There didn't need to be. The chair was there, and Daniel's hand remained on its back until I sat down. It was a small thing. I let it be small without pretending it was nothing. Paige sat across from me, wearing a dark red blouse. "You look nice." "Thank you." "So do you." We spoke like women waiting at the same doctor's office. Around us, the family assembled in cautious clusters. Ray and Susan arrived together. Carol came alone and kissed the air beside my cheek. Howard and Lynn were already arguing about whether they had parked in a loading zone. It said 15 minutes, Howard told anyone who would listen. "We're staying longer than 15 minutes, Lynn said. "The car doesn't know that. The parking officer will. Government overreach. You worked for the county. I know what I'm talking about. Normally, I would have offered to move the car." I opened my menu. Daniel leaned toward me. "Did you bring the recipe?" I took the index card from my purse and handed it to him. He read the note at the bottom and smiled. Dad did always forget the salt. He forgot he'd added it, which was worse. Paige held out her hand for the card. Daniel passed it across. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome." She slipped it into her purse without reading it. I tried not to attach meaning to that. I attached some anyway. When everyone had arrived, there were 14 of us. Paige had chosen a fixed menu to make ordering seamless, a word that immediately guaranteed seams. Howard wanted soup instead of salad. Carol could not eat the chicken because of a marinade nobody had confirmed existed. Susan asked whether the salmon was farmed, and the waiter made the mistake of saying, "I believe so." "You believe?" Susan asked. "I can check." "Please?" The waiter escaped. Ray looked down the table at me. "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely. You used to handle special orders before we sat down. I used to arrive with antacids, too." He patted his jacket pocket. "Brought my own." Paige heard us. Her mouth tightened. Daniel tapped his water glass with a spoon. Nobody stopped talking. He did it again, harder. "Could I have everyone's attention for 1 second?" Howard looked toward the kitchen. "Is he asking us?" "Yes," Lynn said. "You are everyone." Daniel stood halfway, apparently decided that looked too formal, and sat again. "Paige and I wanted to get everybody together," he said. "The last few weeks have been a little strained." Carol made a noise that could have meant agreement or digestion. Daniel continued. "This family has been through too much and means too much to let one bad night turn into something bigger." I looked at my water. Beside him, Paige placed her hand flat on the table. "We wanted neutral ground," she said. Ray glanced at the carpet. "I don't trust this floor." Susan elbowed him. Paige went on. "No one has to cook. No one has to host. We can just enjoy each other." It was a nice idea. The trouble was that enjoying one another had never been our family's natural state. We loved one another. We showed up for surgeries, funerals, moves, and plumbing disasters. Enjoyment required preparation. The waiter returned to report that the salmon was farm-raised. Susan ordered the pasta. Dinner began with 12 separate conversations and became one argument before the entrees arrived. It started when Carol asked Paige whether she planned to host Christmas. Paige reached for her wine. "We haven't decided. I assumed Ellen wasn't doing it," Carol said. I buttered a roll. "Ellen has decided not to host anything," Paige replied. The word anything traveled down the table. Susan turned to me. "You're not doing Christmas. I haven't made plans." "But you always do Christmas," Howard said. Lynn looked at him. "She knows that." I'm confirming. "What would happen if we had it at our house?" Carol asked. Ray said, "We'd have to eat in shifts. My dining room seats 12. We're 14 tonight. Howard and Lynn go to her sister's on Christmas." Howard looked startled. "We do?" "We did last year," Lynn said. "I thought that was Thanksgiving. You slept through most of it." Carol ignored them. "If Ellen doesn't want us, I can make room." Daniel set down his fork. "Nobody said she doesn't want us." She left her own son out of Ray's dinner. "I forgot the dinner," he said. The table went quiet. Carol blinked. "Excuse me?" "I forgot." Mom didn't remind me, but it wasn't her job. I turned toward him. He did not look at me. Carol laughed once. That's a very modern way to see family. It's an accurate way. So we're all just individuals now? Nobody looks out for anybody? Ray cut into his chicken. Ellen looked out for everyone so long we started thinking she was road maintenance. I don't know what that means, Carol said. Neither do I, Susan told him. It made sense in my head. Paige's fingers tightened around her wine glass. Can we not turn this dinner into a referendum on Ellen? Carol looked pleased to have an ally. Thank you. That isn't what I meant. What did you mean? I asked. Paige met my eyes. I mean, we are all here because Daniel and I are trying to repair things. It would be helpful if people allowed us to do that. Repairing usually starts with naming what broke, Ray said. Susan sighed. Ray. No, apparently we're being honest tonight. Howard leaned toward Lynn. Should we move the car? No. Daniel looked at Paige. Something passed between them, an entire disagreement conducted through one held breath. Then Paige looked at me. I made a mistake at the anniversary dinner, she said. I handled the seating badly. Carol frowned. What happened with the seating? Paige's eyes remained on mine. I did not make sure Ellen had a place at the table. Did not make sure? Ray repeated. She was supposed to be helping with the caterer, Carol said. Daniel's chair scraped the floor. Who told you that? Carol looked around. I don't remember. You told people my mother was helping the caterer? He asked Paige. I said she helped during setup, which she did. That's not the same. I know it's not the same. Susan put down her fork. Can we please eat one meal without making it worse? We could have, Ray said, if everybody hadn't spent 3 weeks making it smaller. The waiter arrived with our entrees and sensed the atmosphere too late. He stood holding 2 plates while 14 adults silently rearranged themselves. Salmon? He asked. Nobody answered. He tried again. I have 1 salmon. That's me, Howard said. You ordered the chicken, Lynn told him. I changed my mind. You cannot change your mind after they cook it. The waiter looked ready to abandon the salmon on the carpet. I knew what to do. I could have asked him to set everything on the side table, matched plates to people, made a joke about family dinners requiring protective equipment, and shifted the room back onto safe ground. The ability rose inside me as naturally as breath. I picked up my water and drank. The waiter distributed the food badly. Carol received Susan's pasta. Susan received no entree at all. Howard got the salmon and declared it dry before tasting it. No one died, but without distraction, the argument remained where we had left it. Daniel spoke first. Mom wasn't supposed to be helping the caterer. She was supposed to be at our table. Paige turned to him. I know. Then say that. I just did. No, you said you handled the seating badly. What do you want me to say in front of everyone? I surprised myself by answering. Nothing. Paige looked at me. I don't want an apology because the table has gone quiet and Daniel told you what words to use. Her face flushed. He didn't tell me what to say. Good. What would be good enough for you, Ellen? The question sharpened every face in the room. I don't know yet. That's convenient. Paige, Daniel said. No, I have apologized by text. I have tried to arrange this dinner. I returned her dish. We have invited her. Every single thing I do becomes proof that I'm doing the wrong thing. The casserole dish was mine, I said. I know the dish was yours. And the towel. She stared at me. What? The towel you wrapped around it was mine too. Ray covered his mouth with his napkin. Paige laughed in disbelief. This is exactly what I mean. I cannot win with you. I didn't know we were competing. We've always been competing. There it was, set down between the water glasses more clearly than any entree. Daniel went very still. I asked, for what? Paige looked at him, then at me. For space. Nobody moved. She pushed back her chair. Excuse me. She walked quickly toward the restrooms. Daniel started to rise. I'll go, I said. He looked uncertain. Are you sure? No. I followed her anyway. Paige was not in the restroom. I found her outside the side entrance beside 2 metal ashtrays, standing with her arms folded against the cold. "You didn't have to come after me," she said. "I know, I'm not going back in there yet. I didn't ask you to." Cars moved along the street beyond the parking lot. The restaurant's kitchen vent blew warm air that smelled of garlic and grease. Paige looked at my green dress instead of my face. "Do you know what it's like to marry into a family that already has a correct way to do everything?" "No, of course you don't." That wasn't sarcasm. She rubbed her bare arms. "The first Christmas after Daniel and I married, I made stuffing. I remember. You brought your own. Tom didn't like sausage. You brought enough for everyone. I was trying to help. You're always trying to help." She made it sound like an accusation, and for once I understood why. "When we bought our house, you gave me curtains," she continued. "When I hosted Easter, you arrived with serving spoons because you thought I wouldn't have enough. You didn't have enough." "That is not the point." "No," I said. "I suppose it isn't." Paige looked startled by the concession. "I have spent 20 years in Daniel's mother's house," she said. "Your recipes, your table, your photographs, Tom's jokes that everyone still repeats. You make it all look effortless, and when I try, I become the difficult one with the binder. The binder was frightening." She almost smiled. Then her eyes filled, and the smile vanished. "The anniversary dinner was supposed to be mine," she said. "One night that did not feel like another event Ellen Mercer made possible. So you asked to have it in my house. We couldn't fit everyone. You could have invited fewer people." "I know." "Or chosen the burgundy carpet." "I know." Her breath shook. "I wanted it to be perfect. And I reminded you it wasn't yours." "Yes." The word came out so softly I barely heard it. I could see the whole ugly logic then. Not excuse it, see it. "You could have told me you wanted me to step back," I said. "I didn't want you to step back. What did you want?" "I wanted you to be less necessary." The kitchen vent shut off. Cold filled the space it had warmed. Paige wiped beneath one eye with the heel of her hand. When Martin brought Lee and the Wexlers came early, I looked at that table and thought everybody there was mine. My friends, Daniel's work people, the family members I had invited. And then I saw your chair. You had already made a card for me?" She nodded. "What happened to it?" "I put it in my purse." "Why?" "Because for 1 second, removing you felt like removing the person everyone would assume had created the night." I looked through the side door window. Daniel sat at the table with his head lowered while Ray spoke to him. My empty chair waited beside him. "So you made me staff," I said. Paige's face folded. "I know," she whispered. "No, you know now." She wrapped both arms tighter around herself. "I am ashamed. I believe you. Does that matter?" "Yes." "Does it change anything?" "No." Her eyes hardened again, pain moving back into the shape of anger. "You've made mistakes, too. I have. You made Daniel dependent on you. I know, you judge everything I do. Sometimes you could try forgiving me." "I could." She waited. I opened the door. "But understanding why you made me small does not require me to become small again." I went back inside and sat in the chair Daniel had kept for me. Daniel looked at me, then toward the side door. "Is she coming back?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "That belongs to her." His eyes searched my face. "Are you all right?" "No, but I ordered the pasta, and apparently that's the greater emergency." Susan's missing entree had finally arrived. Carol was eating the salmon Howard had claimed. Howard had acquired her chicken and was telling Lynn he preferred it anyway, proving most conflict could be solved through theft if everyone remained seated. Paige returned several minutes later. Her eyes were dry, her lipstick had been repaired, and her face carried the bright control of someone balancing a full glass. Daniel stood for her. She touched his shoulder as she sat down but did not look at him. Carol leaned toward her. "Everything okay?" "No," Paige said, "but I'm going to eat my dinner." Ray lifted his glass. Finally, a plan. Conversation restarted carefully. Nobody mentioned Christmas. Howard described a cruise he wanted to take, and Lynn corrected the route. Susan told us Ray had already reorganized their garage twice since retiring. There are zones now, she said. Efficient zones, Ray corrected. You labeled a shelf miscellaneous plumbing emotions. That was Daniel's label maker. For a few minutes, we laughed. Not because anything had been repaired, but because people cannot hold one note forever. Even pain needs to breathe. When the checks came, Paige had arranged for one bill. Carol objected. I had wine. So did everyone, Paige said. I had two. Congratulations. I'm trying to pay my share. It's taken care of. There was that phrase again. Taken care of. A lovely phrase until you asked who had done the taking and who had been made into the care. Outside, people separated into small groups near their cars. Ray hugged me, then held on long enough to make it clear the hug contained a message. You did all right, he said. I ate pasta. I meant with Paige. How do you know? I have eyes. Also, she came back looking like somebody had introduced her to herself. Susan approached with her coat unbuttoned. Carol says Christmas can be at her place. Carol says many things, Ray replied. She's serious. Then we should all lose weight by December. Susan ignored him and looked at me. Will you come? If I'm invited. You know you're invited. I've discovered I prefer confirmation. Her face pinched, but she nodded. I'll tell Carol. You don't have to manage it. Ellen, I'm asking one question. So was I. Daniel walked me to my car. We stopped beneath a streetlight that flickered every few seconds. What happened outside? He asked. I told you. Ask your wife. She won't talk until we're home. That sounds sensible. He put his hands in his coat pockets. Did she apologize? No. Did you? I looked at him. For what? He added quickly. I'm not saying you should. I'm asking. I acknowledged some things I did that made her feel judged. That's not exactly an apology. No, it isn't. The streetlight flickered off, then on again. You two are more alike than either of you would enjoy hearing, he said. Be careful. I know where you live. He smiled, but it faded almost immediately. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for saving me a chair. His eyes dropped. It shouldn't feel like something I need to thank you for, I said. I know. I drove home with the mustard sauce card still in Paige's purse and the taste of garlic on my tongue. The hydrangea lost its leaves before the family found a new shape. Carol hosted Christmas in a dining room that did seat 12, provided 2 people remain near the doorway, and Howard agreed not to move his left arm. He objected until Lynn told him to eat with his right. I went because I wanted to see them. That mattered. I brought wine because Carol asked me to, and no food because she did not. It was harder than arriving with 3 dishes. When the potatoes came out lumpy, every part of me wanted to fix them. Paige noticed me looking. Don't, she murmured. I wasn't going to. You had the face. What face? The potato face. Against my will, I laughed. She did too. It was the first easy moment we had shared since the anniversary dinner. It lasted perhaps 5 seconds. Then Carol announced that next year we should return to the old system, and the room stiffened. I mean, Ellen's house, she said. Obviously. Nothing is obvious, Daniel replied. Carol waved her serving spoon at him. You know what I mean. This is ridiculous. We're packed in here because everybody is proving a point. I'm hosting you, Carol's husband, Frank, said from the kitchen. Nice to know it's ridiculous. You know I don't mean it that way. There seem to be a lot of ways nobody means things, Ray said. Susan took the spoon from Carol. Pass the potatoes. No one asked me to commit to the following Christmas. For that, at least, I was grateful. Porchlight suppers gave January a structure. 1 week each month, I matched cooks with drivers, called people after discharge, and learned how many adults lied about their ability to climb stairs. Dana's wrist healed badly because she kept using it. George graduated from his walker to a cane and complained the cane made him look old. You are 76, I told him. I was hoping for distinguished. You need a better hat. He bought one. Marlene returned to coordinating the other weeks and never once attempted to give me more. When she asked whether I could cover an extra Thursday, she added, "No is a complete answer." I said yes because I was free. The choice made the work lighter. Daniel's calls became less frequent and more careful. He began each one by stating its category. Social call, he would say, or question, but not an emergency. Once he called to ask whether the large white tablecloth in his linen closet belonged to me. Yes. Do you need it? Not presently. Would you like it back? Eventually. Okay. That concludes the question. Thank you for your service. He laughed. We spoke for another 10 minutes about nothing important. That was progress. Other times, the old machinery tried to restart. Do you remember when Susan and Ray leave for Florida? No, you don't? I'm not their travel agent. I'm only asking because I thought you knew. You could ask them. Right. A week later, Susan told me Daniel had called her directly. She sounded puzzled. He wanted our flight information. Did you give it to him? Of course. Then the system worked. What system? Exactly. Paige remained mostly at the edge of my life. She sent a card after New Year's with a photograph from the anniversary dinner. In it, she and Daniel stood on the porch beneath Tom's string lights. They looked happy, expensive, and slightly exhausted. Inside, she had written, "Thank you again for letting us use your home." I placed the card in a drawer. Not the trash, not the piano, a drawer. In February, Daniel invited me to lunch at a sandwich shop near his office. When I arrived, he was already seated and had ordered nothing for me. "I didn't know what you wanted," he said. "That is an excellent reason." He looked relieved. We talked about his work, and for the first time in years, I asked enough questions to understand part of it. He managed contracts between hospital systems and equipment suppliers. Much of his day involved persuading two groups who needed each other to stop behaving as if cooperation were a personal defeat. "That sounds familiar," I said. "It's why I'm good at it." "Are you?" He threw a pickle at my plate. Halfway through lunch, he asked whether I had made plans for my birthday. "Ruth is taking me to a jazz concert." "You hate jazz." "I dislike organized jazz." "She claims this will be accessible." "That sounds like a medical procedure." "I'm frightened." He turned his paper cup between his palms. "Paige and I wanted to take you to dinner." "You can?" "On your birthday? The concert is the following night." "Oh." He had expected resistance and did not seem prepared for scheduling. "Your house?" I asked. His fingers stopped moving. "If you want," he said. "I do." Something uncertain but real passed across his face. "All right." Dinner at their house consisted of roast chicken, slightly undercooked carrots, and my mustard sauce served for reasons nobody could explain. "It was on the card," Paige said. "It's for ham. I know that now." Daniel had set 3 places at their round kitchen table. No flowers, no binder, no guests he wanted to impress. Paige handed me a small, wrapped box. Inside was a pair of gardening gloves, blue with leather palms. "For when the hydrangea grows back," she said. "If it grows back." "Ruth says it will." "You're talking to Ruth?" She called Daniel. "Ruth calls everyone." It's a boundary issue. The evening was not warm exactly, but it was not cold. We made it through dinner without discussing the anniversary. When I left, Paige hugged me with both arms. I returned the hug, then drove home, wondering whether peace could be honest if the worst subject remained untouched. The answer came in March. Daniel called at 9 on a Thursday night. "Are you awake?" "I'm 70. I don't know what that means." "It means 9 o'clock is not an act of rebellion." He did not laugh. "What happened?" I asked. "I got a video from Allison Wexler. I pictured the silver dress, the early arrival, the woman admiring my house." "Why?" "She's putting together a presentation for Greg's retirement. She was going through clips from last year and found one from our anniversary." "All right. It's my toast." I sat down at the kitchen table. "What about it?" He was quiet so long I thought the call had dropped. "Mom," he said, "I can see you in the background." I looked toward the dining room. The photographs rested where they belonged. Tom's chair sat at the far end, empty in the ordinary way now. "Doing what?" I asked. "Working." The word broke in his mouth. I waited. "I need to come over," he said. "What do you need?" "Nothing." It was the first time he had ever answered that question correctly. "Come over," I said. He arrived 20 minutes later wearing no coat over his work shirt, though the March rain was cold enough to beat on his shoulders. He had driven across town without changing clothes. His tie was pulled loose, and his hair looked as if he had run both hands through it at every red light. I opened the door. "You're wet." "I know." "Did you forget coats exist?" "I forgot to get one." "That is not the same thing." He stepped inside but did not kiss my cheek. He stood on the hall rug holding his phone with both hands. "You want coffee?" I asked. "No." "Tea?" "No." "Should I list the beverages?" "Mom." "All right." We went into the living room. Daniel sat at the far end of the sofa. I took my reading chair, the one Paige had moved out before the party. The brass lamp cast its very yellow light over both of us. Daniel unlocked his phone. Allison was taking videos all night, he said, for Paige mostly. Decorations, guests arriving, Greg opening the champagne. I remember Greg opening champagne. He didn't open it. He gave a speech about opening it. Daniel almost smiled. Right. He found the clip and held the screen toward me. "I don't need to see it," I said. "I think you do." "Why?" "Because I need you to know what I saw." He pressed play. The video began with the chandelier. Allison's voice said, "Look at this room," and the camera swept over my table. Tom's crystal, the roses, the faces turned toward Daniel. Then Daniel filled the screen. He held his glass and began the same speech I had heard from the stairs. 20 years. Paige had not aged. Their first apartment, their road trips, practical decisions. Laughter rose at the expected places. The camera shifted slightly when a server passed. Through the dining room doors, beyond Daniel's left shoulder, I appeared in the kitchen carrying a tray of empty champagne glasses. I did not remember carrying it. I remembered finding the corkscrew and taking coats upstairs, but not the tray. On the screen, I moved carefully because the glasses were unstable. Omar opened the kitchen door for me. I smiled at him and disappeared. Daniel's recorded voice said, "There's one person who has held all of this together." On the sofa, my son stopped breathing. The camera returned to Paige. She looked beautiful in the candlelight. Her expression softened as Daniel spoke about her patience and her courage and the life they had built. I appeared again in the hallway. This time, I wore my coat. The angle showed only part of me between two guests' shoulders. I stood at the bottom of the stairs with one hand on the newel post and looked into the room. "To the woman who makes everything happen," Daniel said on the video, "none of this exists without you." Everyone lifted a glass toward Paige. On the screen, I walked out of sight. Daniel stopped the video. Rain tapped against the windows. The house had made that sound for 100 years. It seemed unnecessarily loud. "I didn't know anyone saw me leave," I said. She didn't. "Allison sent it because she thought it was a nice speech." It was. No, it wasn't. The speech was lovely. I was praising Paige for making the evening happen while you were carrying glasses through your own house. Paige did make a lot happen. Mom, please don't. Don't what? Make this easier for me while I'm trying to tell you I was wrong. I sat back. All right. He looked down at the frozen image on his phone. Paige's lifted glass, a sliver of my blue dress at the edge of the doorway. I watched it 6 times, he said. The first time, I only saw the tray. The second time, I saw you put on your coat. Then I started looking at everything else. The pictures were gone. Dad's lamp was gone, your chair was gone, the lamp was upstairs. I know. It wasn't gone. He looked at me. I folded my hands in my lap. Sorry, I kept telling myself the party got chaotic, that I made one bad choice in a rushed moment. But that isn't true. I waited. The whole day was choices, he said. Paige asked you to change clothes, and I told you to wear what you wanted while explaining why she was right. You asked where you were sitting, and I acted like you were asking me to choose between you. I saw your face when Lena asked about your meal." His voice broke. He swallowed. "I saw you," he said. "That's what I've been avoiding. I saw exactly what was happening." My throat tightened. "You looked at me," I said. "I know. I waited. I know. You said I wouldn't make a thing of it. I know." He put the phone face down on his knee. "I knew Paige would be angry if I changed the table after the guests arrived. I knew you would try not to embarrass me, so I chose the person most likely to forgive me as the safest person to betray. There it was. Not stress, not wording, not the evening getting away from anyone. A choice." The relief of hearing him name it arrived twisted around pain. I wanted those words. I also hated that I wanted them from the same mouth that had caused the need. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I am sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I let Paige remove your place. I'm sorry I stood there and approved it. I'm sorry I asked you to disappear so I wouldn't have to be uncomfortable in front of people I barely knew." I looked at his wet shoulders. "Why did you need a video?" I asked. He flinched. "I told you what happened. I know. Lena saw it. The entire kitchen heard it. You remembered saying the words. Why did you need to watch me carry a tray before you believed me? I believed you." "No, you believed I was upset." He nodded slowly. "You're right. That isn't the same as believing the thing was wrong." "No." "Then why?" He rubbed his palms together. "Because every time I remembered the party, I remembered myself in the middle of it. Guests arriving, Paige panicking, Greg talking to me, the champagne. I could make every choice look like the next thing that happened to me. And the video, I wasn't in the middle." He picked up the phone but did not turn it over. "I saw you in the background of my life," he said. "And I realized that's where I had put you." I turned my face toward the window. The reflection showed an older woman in a yellow pool of lamplight. Her son sat 10 feet away, waiting without asking her to make his apology successful. After a moment, I said, "Ray told you the story." "Yes." "What was it?" Daniel breathed in. "When I was 23, Dad had that retirement banquet at the Machine Works. He wasn't retiring. It was his 25-year service dinner." "Right?" I remembered the rented ballroom, the navy dress I wore, Tom pretending not to care about receiving a plaque. "You were late," I said. "My tire blew on the interstate. By the time I got there, dinner had started." "I remember. But you didn't see what happened at the door." I shook my head. "The banquet manager said they'd cleared my place because I hadn't checked in. He told me I could wait near the kitchen and they'd bring a staff meal after everyone was served." The coincidence made me look at him. Daniel gave a small, miserable laugh. "Yeah." "What did your father do?" "Uncle Ray went to get him. Dad came out, took me by the arm, and walked me to the head table. The manager said there wasn't room. Dad picked up his own chair and carried it across the room. That was Tom, not a speech. A piece of furniture scraped loudly over a polished floor. He sat beside me at the end of the table," Daniel continued. "He missed the first half of his own dinner because they had to reset everything. Ray said Dad told the manager, 'If my son eats in the kitchen, I eat in the kitchen.'" I closed my eyes. "I forgot that," Daniel said. "Not the tire or being late. I forgot the chair." Ray remembered. "He said he wanted to tell it at his retirement dinner because Dad wasn't there, and because he thought I'd become the kind of man who would carry the chair." The words hung between us. Daniel looked at the floor. "I wasn't," he said. "You can be." He shook his head. "Don't forgive me yet." I didn't. "You did the thing with your voice." "What thing?" "The voice that says I'm still good underneath whatever I did. You are. I need to be better on top too." It sounded like something Tom might have said. Or Ruth. Possibly a gardening tag. I stood. Daniel looked up. "Are you leaving?" "I live here." I went into the kitchen and filled the kettle. "I thought you didn't want tea," I called. "I changed my mind. That is allowed before I make it." He followed and sat at the table. I made tea for both of us. When I put his cup down, he did not reach for it immediately. "I'm sorry about Uncle Ray's dinner," I said. His eyes lifted. "I'm not sorry I didn't remind you. But Ray asked whether part of me was waiting for you to fail, and part of me was." Daniel wrapped both hands around the cup. I figured. I wanted proof that what I did mattered. It did. I know that now. But I let Ray's disappointment become the proof. That wasn't fair to him or to you, mostly him. He looked into the tea. He forgave me. I assumed. He didn't make it easy. He's getting wise in retirement. Daniel smiled faintly. "What was on the paper?" I asked. "The story. Just a few lines so he wouldn't forget the details. He carried it for weeks. He gave it to me." "That seems risky. It's in my desk. Safer." We drank our tea. He told me Greg had announced his retirement, which explained Allison's presentation. I told him George had bought a hat that made him look like a dishonest riverboat captain. Daniel asked who George was, and I explained Porchlight Suppers without his face closing this time. "Do you like it?" he asked. "I do. I'm glad." Another small thing. When he finished his tea, he carried both cups to the sink. "You don't have to wash them," I said. He looked over his shoulder. "I know." He washed them anyway, dried them, and asked where they belonged. "The cabinet above the coffee maker." "I knew that. You asked." I wanted confirmation. He put the cups away. At the front door, he paused with one hand on the knob. "I'm not asking you to forgive Paige," he said. "Good. And I'm not asking you to start Sunday dinners again. Also good. I just want to keep showing up. That would be a start." He nodded. I touched his wet sleeve. "Wear a coat next time. There she is. Concern is not management. I'll write that down." He opened the door. "Daniel." He turned. "I do forgive you." His face crumpled before he could stop it. I held up one hand. "That does not mean we return to the old arrangement. I know. It does not mean you're finished apologizing through your behavior. I know. And if you ever put my dinner in a plastic container again, it had better be because I asked for leftovers." He laughed through tears. "Understood." I watched him walk through the rain to his car. The porch light caught the water on his shirt, and for one irrational second, I wanted to run after him with Tom's old coat. I stayed in the doorway instead. He was cold. He was also capable of opening his own car door, turning on the heat, and driving himself home. I closed the door and leaned against it. Forgiveness, I discovered, did not feel like warmth spreading through the body. It felt more like setting down a heavy bag and immediately noticing how sore your hand had become. Daniel called the following Sunday. "Social invitation," he said. "Lunch. Just you and me." "Where?" "The diner near the river. They make terrible coffee. I thought you liked it. I like complaining about it. Does noon work?" "It does." He was already there when I arrived. He stood, waited until I chose my own chair, and did not order for me. We talked about Greg's retirement presentation, the water stain on Ray's garage ceiling, and whether the city had deliberately synchronized every traffic light to punish Daniel. He did not mention the anniversary video. Neither did I. Before we left, he said, "Same time in 2 weeks? Are we establishing a standing appointment? I'm trying to keep a plan." Then yes, he kept it. Some lunches were easy. Others felt like we were building a bridge while walking across it. Daniel would begin to ask whether I remembered somebody's birthday, stop himself, and take out his phone. I would begin offering to cook, stop myself, and ask whether he was inviting me to his house. Once, he canceled because of work. He called the day before, apologized, and offered 2 specific alternatives. I nearly congratulated him as if he had mastered indoor plumbing. Instead, I chose Wednesday. That was part of my work, allowing improvement to become ordinary. Paige did not come to the lunches. She did not call. On Easter, she sent a short message wishing me a peaceful day. I answered, "You too." Daniel spent Easter with her family. He told me this directly instead of offering 3 explanations designed to make me approve. I joined Ray and Susan for brunch, then delivered 2 porchlight meals. George complained that the ham was too sweet and asked for seconds. By May, the hydrangea began producing green leaves. Ruth stood over it with her hands on her hips. You doubted me. I doubted the plant. You insulted us both. It resembles a collection of sticks wearing earrings. It's recovering. I looked at the new leaves, slowly. That is how recovery works. If you put that on a gardening tag, I'll burn it. Daniel began coming by once or twice a month, sometimes with a reason and sometimes without one. The reasons became less disguised. Can you help me remember how Dad wired the porch lights? He asked one afternoon. No, you watched him do it. I watched him swear at it. That's still information. We found Tom's old notebook in the garage. Daniel read the diagram while I held a flashlight, and together we discovered that neither of us understood what Tom had drawn. It looks like a horse, Daniel said. Your father could not draw horses. Then why does it have legs? Those are wires. Wires don't have knees. We called an electrician. It was the sort of failure that used to become my responsibility. This time, Daniel arranged the appointment, waited at the house, and paid the bill. He did not leave me with a 4-hour service window and call it company. Paige's absence eventually became its own presence. At lunch in June, Daniel unfolded and refolded the paper wrapper from his straw until it looked like an accordion. You can say her name, I told him. Whose? Your secret second wife. He dropped the wrapper. I wasn't avoiding Paige. You have mentioned your dentist more often. She doesn't know what you want from her. I'm not sure either. She thinks you don't want to see her. I didn't say that. You haven't invited her. She hasn't asked. He looked tired. This is where I usually fix things. How is retirement? Awful. Good. He smiled, then became serious again. I told her I won't carry messages anymore. That was wise. She said you and I have repaired everything and left her outside. We haven't repaired everything. I know, but we're talking. She can call me. I told her that. I took a bite of my sandwich. Daniel waited. What? Nothing. You're waiting for me to relieve you of responsibility. I'm waiting to see if you say anything else. I have nothing else to say. That's new. He balled up the paper wrapper and put it on his plate. She found one of Dad's crystal glasses. I looked at him. Where? In a catering box in our garage. It must have been packed with the rented stemware. Is it damaged? No. She washed it. Good. She wants to bring it back. She knows the address. Daniel nodded. He did not ask when. He did not ask me to be kind. He did not ask whether I forgave her. 4 days later, Paige called. Could I come by tomorrow? She asked. Yes. What time works? 2. I'll be there. She arrived at 1:58 carrying a small box. Her hair was loose around her shoulders and she wore a navy dress I had seen before but could not place. She looked polished, as always, yet the box trembled slightly in her hands. I found this, she said. So I heard. Her mouth moved. Daniel told you. He told me you found a glass. He did not tell me anything else. That's probably a first, for both of us. I let her in. The crystal glass was wrapped in one of her gray linen napkins. She had cleaned it so thoroughly that it barely seemed solid. When I lifted it toward the window, a tiny crescent of light moved across the ceiling. It belongs to the set, I said. I know. You could have given it to Daniel. I know. We stood in my living room with the box between us. Would you like coffee? I asked. Do you want me to stay for coffee? Yes. She nodded. Then yes. In the kitchen, I filled the coffee maker while Paige sat at the table. The blue casserole dish was back in her pantry. My towel was in the laundry room. The crystal glass stood between us like a witness who had already given a statement. I watched the video, she said. I turned. Daniel showed me after he came here. What did you see? She looked toward the glass. You! The coffee maker clicked and began to hiss. I watched it once, she continued. Daniel watched it over and over. I couldn't. Why? Because I remembered being happy during that speech. You were supposed to be happy. I had just told Lena to feed you in the kitchen, and I was happy. She pressed her palms flat on the table. I have spent months trying to build an apology that explains me, she said. Every version had a section about the guest list, or my childhood, or how intimidated I felt in this house. Those things are true. Yes, they are also not the apology. I poured the coffee and sat across from her. Paige looked directly at me. "I removed your place," she said. "I put your card in my purse because I wanted the night to look like mine. I told Lena your meal could go with the staff trays. I knew you were standing there. I knew it would humiliate you, and for one terrible moment that was part of why I said it." My fingers tightened around the mug. "Daniel did not make me do it. Stress did not make me do it. You did not make me do it. I did it." She breathed in carefully. "I am sorry, Ellen." There was no when emotions settle, no if, no request to move forward. The apology did not undo the kitchen or the black container with my name. It did not erase my son's face when he chose convenience, but it reached the correct wound without asking me to identify it for her. "Thank you," I said. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Is that all?" "For now." She nodded and looked down. "I accept your apology," I added, "but I don't know what our relationship looks like after it." "I don't either. I won't go back to being useful enough that you resent me and quiet enough that you can use me. I'm not asking you to." "Good." We drank coffee. After a minute, I said, "I owe you an apology, too." Her head lifted quickly. "You don't have to do that." "I know." She waited. "The stuffing," I said. Paige stared at me. "The first Christmas. You made stuffing and I brought my own because Tom didn't like sausage. I remember. I should have brought a small dish for him, or told him to eat what was served. Tom would have complained. Tom's discomfort was not a medical emergency." Paige gave a wet laugh. "And the curtains," I continued. "I bought them because you said the windows felt bare. I didn't ask what you liked. I gave you the ones I would have chosen. They were beige. I like beige." "I know. And the serving spoons at Easter. I did need those. That was not the point." We both smiled. "I'm sorry I kept arriving with the correct version of things," I said. "I thought I was helping. Sometimes I was helping. Sometimes I was making sure everybody knew I knew better." Paige wiped one cheek. "Thank you. My mistakes do not make what you did smaller. I know." "Good." She looked around the kitchen. "I still hate the yellow lamp. That apology lasted 9 minutes. It's aggressively yellow. It was Tom's. I know. That's why no one can criticize it. I criticize it. You get to." There was the old competition in the conversation, but something had changed. Neither of us needed to win it. Paige stayed for an hour. We did not hug when she left. She carried the empty box and left her gray napkin beneath the crystal glass. Our relationship did not become easy after that. It became specific. Paige called before visiting. I asked before bringing food. When she requested the mustard sauce recipe because she had lost the card, I said, "You lost my handwritten card?" "Yes." "That was negligent. I accept full responsibility." I texted the recipe. At Ray's summer cookout, Paige brought a lemon cake from a bakery. I looked at it. "Don't," she said. I didn't say anything. "You had the cake face." "There is no cake face. There are many faces." Her cake was dry. I ate a full slice. Daniel watched us from across the yard with such visible relief that Paige and I both turned on him. "Stop monitoring," she said. I wasn't. "You were," I told him. He raised both hands and went to help Ray with the grill. The months gathered quietly. Porchlight Suppers expanded its list, and I agreed to coordinate one additional week during Marlene's vacation, then returned it when she came home. Daniel remembered Susan's birthday without assistance. Paige hosted a dinner for 6 and did not invite me because all 6 were her friends. I was strangely proud of her. Then, on a September afternoon, Daniel and Paige came to my house together. They sat side by side at the kitchen table. No binder, no casserole dish, no emergency. "Our anniversary is next Saturday," Daniel said. "I know. We're having dinner at home," Paige added. "Just the 2 of us, Ray and Susan and you." Daniel watched my face. Paige did not. "We'd like you to come," she said, "as a guest. I looked from one to the other. "What time?" "6:30, Daniel said. "Do I bring anything?" "No," they answered together. I smiled despite myself. Paige placed both hands around her untouched coffee. "I understand if you don't want to." I almost said no. The anniversary belonged to the wound now. I could already feel the kitchen heat, see Lena holding those cards, hear Daniel tell the room who would stay quiet. Attending might look like proof that the injury had vanished. It might become another easy picture. Daniel seemed to read some of that. "You're invited as my mother," he said. "Not to cook, not to help, not to make anyone comfortable. What if I'm naturally delightful? We'll manage. And if something goes wrong?" I asked. Paige met my eyes. "Then it goes wrong," she said. I looked at the crystal glass on the shelf behind them, restored to the set but not hidden among it. "All right," I said. "I'll come." For the next week, I resisted the urge to prepare for being a guest. This was more difficult than it sounds. On Thursday, I took butter out of the refrigerator for a lemon cake. I put it back. On Friday, I considered polishing the crystal cake stand, although nobody had asked for it and I had no cake to place on top. Saturday morning, I called Ruth. "I may be having a domestic emergency," I said. "What did you bake?" "Nothing." "Good." I took butter out. "Did it threaten anyone?" "I returned it to containment. Then you're stable." I looked at the blue dress hanging from my bedroom door. I had not worn it since the anniversary dinner. It had been cleaned months ago, but in my mind it still smelled of rain, diner coffee, and candles someone else extinguished. "What should I wear?" I asked. "To dinner?" "Yes. Clothes." "You're very helpful." "What do you want to wear?" "The blue dress." "Then wear it. Does that seem pointed?" "Only if you point at it." I ran my hand over one sleeve. "If I wear something else, I'll know I avoided it. Then it will own 2 evenings." Ruth was irritatingly efficient when she was right. At 6:15, I put on the blue dress. I fastened the pearl earrings Daniel had given me and left the bracelet in its box. The dress fit exactly as it had the year before. I looked different inside it. I drove to Daniel and Paige's house with empty hands. Their porch light was on. Through the front window, I could see Daniel moving quickly between the kitchen and dining room. He wore an apron over a white shirt, and one side of his collar was folded beneath it. I rang the bell. He opened the door holding a wooden spoon. "You came," he said. "You invited me." "I know. I'm glad." He leaned forward, kissed my cheek, and stepped aside. The house smelled like rosemary, onions, and something almost burned. "Can I take your coat?" he asked. "I'm not wearing one." He looked past me toward the dark driveway. "It's cold. I'm 70. 9 o'clock is not rebellious, but apparently bare arms in September are. Come in." Paige appeared from the kitchen carrying a bowl of potatoes. She stopped when she saw the dress. For 1 second, we both remembered. Then she said, "You look beautiful." "Thank you." Her hair was pulled into a loose knot, and flour marked one sleeve of her green blouse. She looked less like the woman who had entered my house with a binder and more like someone who had been arguing with an oven. "You didn't bring anything," she said. "You told me not to." "I know. Are you disappointed?" "No." She smiled. Surprised. Me too. Their house was not too small for dinner. It was too small for 34 people. 3 flower arrangements, a dessert station, and Greg Wexler's voice. For 5 adults, it was warm. The round kitchen table had been extended with 1 leaf. 5 chairs fit around it without crowding. White plates sat on blue woven mats. A grocery store bouquet stood in a water pitcher. There were place cards. I found mine immediately. Ellen Mercer, written in Paige's neat block letters. The card stood beside Daniel's chair, across from Paige's. "You made place cards for 5 people?" I asked. Paige looked embarrassed. I thought clarity might be nice. Ray's card said Raymond Mercer. He'll object to Raymond. He can make his own place card. I touched mine with 1 finger. It was only folded paper. It did not restore the missing card Paige had carried in her purse the year before. It did not need to. The doorbell rang. Ray entered carrying wine despite instructions, followed by Susan with a bakery box. "We were told not to bring anything," Susan announced. "We brought 2 things," Ray said. "That averages to 1. "That is not how averages work," Daniel told him. "You sell hospital equipment. I negotiate contracts, then stay in your lane." Susan handed the bakery box to Paige. "It's an apple tart." I panicked. "I made dessert," Paige said. Susan froze. "I can take it back. The bakery is closed. I can put it in the car. We can have 2 desserts. Ray looked at me. "Remember when we had 1 dessert and nobody suffered?" "No," I said. "That sounds bleak." We sat in the living room while Daniel finished dinner. The room held photographs I had not chosen, curtains I had not bought, and a brass lamp with a white shade. Paige caught me looking at it. "Don't," she said. I said nothing. "You had the lamp face. I do not have a complete set of object-specific faces." "You do," Daniel called from the kitchen. "There's also a towel face. That towel was mine." Ray lifted his glass. "I have no idea what we're discussing, and I support Ellen." For 10 minutes, the evening felt almost easy. Then the oven timer rang. Daniel swore. Paige hurried into the kitchen. "What? The chicken's done. That is what the timer means. The potatoes aren't. How are the potatoes not done?" "They went in first. I may have turned the wrong burner on. The potatoes are in the oven. Then I may not understand the controls." I started to stand. My body did it before my mind gave permission. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "Sit," he said. "I was only going to see if—" "I know." Paige stood behind him, holding a fork and looking stricken. "The chicken can rest," I said. Daniel pointed the wooden spoon at me. "Guest. Bossy. Retired manager." I sat back. He returned to the kitchen. Ray leaned close. "This could take hours. You brought wine. Good point." The potatoes delayed dinner by 20 minutes. Nobody became ill. We discussed whether Ray's new hat made him distinguished. Susan said it made him look like a man who knew where bodies were buried. "They aren't bodies, if the paperwork is correct," Ray said. At last, Daniel carried in the chicken. It was darker than mine would have been and smelled wonderful. Paige followed with the potatoes, which had crisp edges and hard centers. Then she stopped. "What?" Daniel asked. "The green beans." He looked toward the kitchen. "I cooked them." "I know. We don't have a serving dish. Use the white bowl. The potatoes are in it. The blue bowl. It's too small." I knew exactly which dish would work. The wide yellow bowl in the cabinet beside their refrigerator. I had given it to them 15 years earlier. Paige used it for salad. I opened my mouth. Paige looked at me. The old arrangement stood there, ready. She had a problem. I had an answer. Daniel was holding a platter. Ray was hungry. It would take 3 seconds for me to solve the room and become necessary again. Daniel set down the chicken. "I'll handle it," he said. Paige's face tightened. "We're already late." "I know. We can put them in the pot." "Then we'll put them in the pot. The pot is ugly." "They're green beans, Paige. Their reputation will survive." He returned to the kitchen. There was no accusation in his voice, no demand that she relax, no glance at me asking for reinforcement. He picked up the hot pot himself, wrapped a dish towel around the handles, and set it on a trivet in the middle of the table. The pot was scratched, black, and deep enough to hide half the beans. Paige stared at it. Then she laughed. Not her polite laugh. The real one. The one that came from somewhere low in her chest and made her cover her mouth. "I'm sorry," she said. "It's terrible." Daniel looked offended. "It contains food. It looks like we're camping. We have chairs." Ray lifted the lid. "We also have beans. Sit down." Paige sat. So did Daniel. I had not moved. That was the proof. Not the card. Not the blue dress. Not even Daniel's apology in the yellow light of my kitchen. Something had gone wrong, and nobody had required me to disappear into the solution. Daniel carved the chicken badly. The first slice was too thick, the second too thin, and the third detached at an angle that insulted anatomy. "Would you like help?" I asked. He considered it. "Yes," he said. "Would you show me where to cut?" He did not hand me the knife. I pointed to the joint. He found it himself. There was a difference between being asked for knowledge and being handed the whole task. A small difference, perhaps, large enough to live inside. We ate. The chicken was dry near one end and perfect near the other. The potatoes needed salt. The beans were excellent, though Ray claimed anything served from a black pot tasted better because it had working-class integrity. Conversation strained in places. Susan asked whether Christmas might be at my house again. The question landed between Paige and me. I put down my fork. Before I answered, Daniel said, "We don't need to decide tonight." "I was only asking," Susan replied. "I know. Mom can host when she wants to, not because the calendar tells her." Everyone looked at me. "I may invite you," I said. "I may not." Ray nodded. "We'll wait for formal documents. There will be no documents. Then Carol will dispute the process." We moved on. After dinner, Daniel cleared plates. Paige reached for mine, then paused. "Finished?" she asked. "Yes." She took it. Again, small. Again, not nothing. Dessert turned out to be lemon cake. Paige set it on the table beside Susan's apple tart. The icing leaned slightly to one side. A crack crossed the top. "I used your recipe," she told me. "The one I texted after you lost the card? I did not lose it. I temporarily failed to know its location. You said you lost it. I was ashamed of losing a recipe card. It had your handwriting." Daniel cut the cake. She found it in the side pocket of her purse. "The same purse?" I asked. Paige understood which purse I meant. "Yes." Was my place card still in there? The room went still. Daniel looked at Paige. She set down her fork. "No." "What happened to it?" "I tore it up that night." I nodded. "I wish I hadn't," she said. "Why?" "So I could give it back." "I don't want it." She looked toward the card beside my plate. "No," she said. "I suppose you don't." Daniel served the cake. It was good. Not mine, exactly. Paige had used less sugar and more lemon zest. The texture was denser. "What do you think?" she asked. I took another bite. "It's very good. What would you change? Do you want to know?" "Yes." "I'd add a little more milk." She nodded. "I thought the batter looked thick. You could also leave it exactly as it is." "Would you?" "No." She smiled. "Thank you for your honesty." Ray held up his plate. "My cake appears to be dry. Is that because of family tension?" "You've eaten all of it," Susan said. I was gathering evidence. After dessert, Ray and Susan left with half the apple tart and none of the potatoes. At the door, Susan hugged me. "This was nice," she whispered. It was. Not perfect. No. She smiled. Better. When the door closed, I carried my glass toward the kitchen. Daniel took it from me. "You're a guest. Guests can carry glasses. Not this one." Paige began stacking plates. "You don't have to stay while we clean." "I know. You can, though. I know that, too." I returned to the table. From the kitchen came the sound of running water, plates touching, and Daniel asking where the storage containers were. "You put them away," Paige said. "I put many things away. They're beneath the island." "Which side?" "The side with cabinets. All sides have cabinets." I smiled. A minute later, Daniel appeared with a black plastic container. All three of us saw it. His hand froze. Paige closed her eyes. "We have glass ones. They're in a cabinet. Everything is in a cabinet." I held out my hand. "Plastic is fine." Daniel did not move. "I would like leftovers," I said. "I am asking for them." Slowly, he handed me the container. I filled it myself with a slice of chicken, 2 potatoes, and the last spoonful of green beans. Paige wrapped a piece of lemon cake separately. Daniel found a silver marker in a drawer. "Absolutely not," I said. He laughed and put it away. At the door, Paige hugged me first. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for inviting me." Daniel kissed my cheek. "Drive carefully. I have been driving longer than you've been alive. That has never stopped you from telling me. Concern is not management." He smiled. "I remember." I walked to my car carrying the black container. Through their front window, I could see the table. 5 chairs surrounded it. Dirty napkins remained beside the plates. The black pot still sat in the center, lid crooked, green beans gone. Nothing looked polished. No one had applauded. The meal had been late, the conversation had occasionally hurt, and there had been more dessert than necessary, but I had stayed seated while the trouble happened. I got into my car, set my dinner on the passenger seat, and drove home while it was still warm.